What is up everyone, Xeno What If here. For those that are new to my YouTube channel, subscribe immediately to see more content, and also leave a comment down below to suggest more amazing kinds of videos. Bring in the movie of What If called, What If Lupin and Peter 616 was betrayed and become monarchs. Link down in description of the fanfiction This What If. This is going to be a bit of an epic massive crossover of Marvel 616, Lupin III 616, chillin' in another world with level 2 super cheat powers, tales of wedding rings and solo leveling. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 0, Second Chance. Earth 616, the most rotten core. The Civil War was the beginning of the end. For Peter Parker, it was the moment the fragile scaffolding of his life finally collapsed. It was meant to be a simple, public appearance, a plea for reason in a world tearing itself apart over registration. But in the crowd, an assassin hired by the Kingpin raised a rifle. The target was Aunt May, a final, cruel blow to break Spider-Man. The bullet did not find Aunt May. It found Mary Jane. Peter watched the light in her eyes fade, the vibrant red of her hair stark against the growing crimson stain on her shirt. Something inside him, something he had held onto through every loss, every betrayal, finally snapped. He didn't subdue the assassin. He didn't web him up for the authorities. With a brutality he never knew he possessed, Peter Parker ended him. In the horrific aftermath, with MJ gone, a final, twisted revelation awaited. Kingpin had orchestrated it all, and to prove his point, he had Aunt May as a hostage. When Peter rescued her, battered and bleeding, he expected comfort, understanding, the last vestige of family. Instead, she looked at him, at the blood on his hands, at the fury in his eyes, and she sculled him. She disowned him. The woman who taught him that, with great power comes great responsibility, now saw only a monster. The last thread holding Peter Parker together severed. He was thrown into a maximum security prison, not as a hero, not as a vigilante, but as a permanent problem. In the cold silence of his cell, a single, corrosive question ate away at him. If a world ruled by people with power, money, and fame only cares for the rich while the poor suffer, is this a world worth saving? If power-hungry men like Stark are in control, was anything I ever did truly good? So, kiddo, a familiar, weary voice came from the adjacent cell. You did the right thing, only for your own Aunt May to disown you. Peter turned. It was Lupin III, the master thief. But the jaunty, carefree rogue was gone. In his place was a man whose eyes held the same hollowed-out resignation as Peter's own. Lupin, what happened to you? Peter asked, his voice rough from disuse. Trust me, a lot of things have happened, kiddo, Lupin replied, leaning against the cold bars. The world really does screw you over, no matter how many times you try to do good. I've spent my life outsmarting it, and even I have to ask, is this world really just that irredeemably toxic? Peter had no answer. His silence was confirmation enough. Their end was as meaningless as their imprisonment. When they fought back against particularly cruel guards, they were met with overwhelming force. Electric collars were activated, and bolts of energy coursed through them until their hearts stopped. The guards, corrupted by greed and apathy, simply shrugged and dumped their lifeless corpses into the cold, dark ocean. The Omni-God's judgment. From a throne outside of time and space, a being of immense power watched the 616 universe. He saw its core, not of molten rock, but of festering corruption, blacker and more rotten than any other. Damn this 616 universe, the Omni-God's voice echoed in the void. It's corrupted. Nothing more but rotten to the core. Good people, forced to live in such a toxic, rotten reality. His gaze fell upon the two discarded souls sinking into the abyss, Peter Parker and Lupin III. I have no choice but to resurrect these two. They deserve a second chance, far from this poison. He snapped his fingers. The souls of Peter and Lupin were plucked from the void, their memories intact, their potential unlocked, and sent spinning into the loom of new realities. Peter Parker, now known as Peter Kixing, shall find his new life in a world of chillin' in another world with level 2 super cheat. And Lupin III, now Lupin Shogun, shall be reborn not as a human, but as a Saiyan in the Tales of the Wedding Ring. A final, merciful thought crossed the entity's mind. And I know Peter had few friends in that wretched place. Perhaps he could use some familiar faces. With another snap, he sent the souls of Deadpool and Moon Knight to Peter's new world, ensuring the spider would not be entirely among strangers. He and Lupin both carry royal blood in their new lives, Peter from the Kixing clan, Lupin from the Raiden Shogun Empire. Let them rise. Let them live the lives they were denied. A new life, Peter Kixing. In his new world, Peter was given a new name, a new family, and incredible power over the earth itself, Geo. Yet, old patterns emerged. A bully, a reincarnation of his old tormentor Flash, had him cast out from the castle. But this time, it was different. This time, he was not alone. He befriended a lupine demon girl, Fenris, his first true connection and love interest in this world. He found camaraderie with a muscular warrior woman named Bilary, and to his astonishment, his old allies Deadpool and Moon Knight appeared, with Moon Knight forming a bond with a woman named Bilio. Peter trained Bilary's party relentlessly, honing their skills and his own burgeoning magical abilities. He grew so powerful and respected that he even befriended the Demon Lord himself. He was living a life he had only ever dreamed of, a quiet, normal life where he was free, powerful, and surrounded by those who valued him. No longer a hero, no longer a pawn. He looked up at the sky, a genuine smile on his face for the first time in years. Thank you, God, for giving me this life I wanted. A new destiny, Lupin Shogun. Reborn as a Saiyan in the world of Tales of Wedding Rings, Lupin Shogun embraced his new identity. He left his thieving past as Lupin III, completely behind, focusing on training his Saiyan body and the incredible electro powers that now coursed through him. By his side was his childhood friend and beloved, the voluptuous blonde beauty Crystal Nova T. He was finally living the life he wanted, one of challenge, growth, and honest companionship. His resolve was tested when an unknown horde of monsters attacked the castle. Without hesitation, Lupin stepped forward. He summoned a mask that covered his face, giving him a fierce, focused appearance. All right, he said, lightning crackling around his fists. Let's do this. He charged into the fray, a blur of electrified speed. He moved with a precision that was part Saiyan instinct, part Raiden Shogun's discipline. He unleashed his new abilities, creating electrical constructs in the form of spectral samurai he called Dancing Thunder. The samurai weaved through the monsters, slicing and dicing with lightning-fast strikes. As the knights watched in stunned amazement, Lupin gathered his energy, fusing his electro power with his innate Saiyan ki, and unleashed a massive blast that vaporized a swath of the creatures. From the ramparts, Crystal watched, her heart swelling with awe and pride. Her childhood friend now wielded the power of lightning itself. As the last monster fell, Lupin took a breath and glanced at the status screen only he could see. It had updated, reflecting his explosive growth in battle. Level 55. A small, satisfied smirk touched his lips. This was only the beginning. Chapter 2. Happiness, Love. The sun-drenched plaza of the merchant district was a symphony of life, a far cry from the sterile silence of a prison cell. Peter Kixing walked with an ease he had never known in his previous life. On one arm was Fenris, a lupine demoness with fierce amber eyes and a loyal heart, her tail occasionally brushing against his leg. On the other was Bilary, a gentle healer whose laughter was as bright as the day. For the first time since MJ, Peter felt a peace that was not fragile, but rooted deep within him, as solid as the geo energy he commanded. Their camaraderie was amplified by the presence of their equally unique companions. Deadpool, somehow having also found his way to this world, was juggling daggers for a group of enthralled children while his own elven partner facepalmed affectionately. Moon Knight, his stern demeanor softened by the presence of a priestess of the moon goddess, watched over the scene with a quiet, protective air. This was happiness. Simple, genuine, and earned. It was in this moment of perfect contentment that a discordant sneer cut through the air. Well, if it isn't the wimpy kid, playing house with monsters. The smile vanished from Peter's face. He didn't need to turn to know the voice. It was a ghost from a past he had buried, dripping with the same arrogant venom. Flash Thompson. Somehow, the bully from Midtown High had also been reincarnated here, and he had not changed. He stood with his usual entourage of goons, having just been publicly and humiliatingly expelled from the Royal Guard for negligence and arrogance. Looks like some things never change, Parker, Flash spat, his new, bulkier form puffing up. You still need freaks to protect you. One of his goons, emboldened, jeered, "Yeah, just like what happened to your redhead back home. That was your fault too, wasn't it?" The world stopped. The cheerful noise of the plaza faded into a dull roar in Peter's ears. The mention of MJ, of that failure, that pain, it was a key turning in a lock he thought he had sealed forever. He saw Fenris, who had stepped forward to retort, get shoved hard by Flash. She stumbled, a sharp rock at the edge of a fountain gashing her arm. She cried out, crimson blooming against her fur. Peter saw her fall, but his mind superimposed another image, a redhead falling, a life extinguished. A silence fell over Peter, deeper and more terrifying than any shout. The air around him grew heavy, the very stones of the plaza trembling. An aura of pure, unadulterated geo-energy, tinged with a bloody amber light he had never manifested before, erupted from him. The ground at his feet cracked in a spiderweb pattern. He looked up. The gentle, disciplined young master of the Kixing clan was gone. In his place was the specter of the man who had been pushed too far, first by fate, and now by a fool who had signed his own death warrant. Flash and his goons finally saw it. The fear they had so desperately tried to instill in others was now theirs. "What's the matter, gonna cry?" Flash tried, but his voice was a tremulous whisper. Peter didn't speak. He moved. The first goon who lunged met a geo-reinforced fist that didn't just block his attack, it slammed his head into the cobblestones with a sickening crunch. The man went limp. The second goon found Peter behind him in a blur of motion. A precise, brutal strike shattered his spine before a twist of Peter's hand snapped his neck with a sound like dry kindling. The summoned goddess, a minor deity of mischief Flash had bribed, tried to intervene. Peter didn't even glance her way. A pillar of earth shot up, catching her under the chin and launching her into the air before she crashed down, unconscious. Then it was just Flash. Terror finally, truly, seized him. He fell to his knees, begging, "Mercy, Peter, please." Peter grabbed him by the throat. There was no rage in his eyes, only a cold, terrifying finality. The sound of breaking bones was methodical, systematic. A sickening symphony of crunching cartilage and splintering bone filled the air as Flash Thompson was reduced to a broken, bleeding heap, his face a pulped, unrecognizable mess. As he stood over the whimpering ruin of his past, a shadow fell over him. It was the demon lord Gozel, Fenris's father, a being of immense power who had taken a liking to the steadfast young geo-wielder. He looked down at Flash, then at Peter, a grim smile on his fearsome features. "Healing for your mate, young Kixing," Gozel rumbled, his dark energy washing over Fenris, sealing her wound. "And for you, a gift. A token of appreciation for handing me such a delicious piece of tribute. Bullies are so full of spite. It gives them a unique flavor." Peter watched as Gozel's shadows consumed the broken form of Flash Thompson, dragging him away to a fate worse than death. The fury in Peter's chest cooled, replaced by a profound sense of closure. The ghost of his past was exorcised. He turned back to Fenris, who was now healed, and pulled her into a tight embrace. "I'm all right," she whispered, nuzzling into his neck. "He's gone. It's over." Peter finally breathed. The weight was gone. He was free. Across the continent, in the heart of the Shogun Temple Empire, the atmosphere was one of opulent, chaotic affection. Lupin Shogun, the Electro Saiyan heir, was holding court in his personal chambers. The stoic discipline he showed in battle was here replaced by a contented, relaxed posture. Crystal Nova T, a human noblewoman with eyes like amethysts, was braiding a section of his wild hair while whispering teasing remarks in his ear. The elven archer, Nephrites, her blonde hair like spun moonlight, was more direct, capturing his lips in a series of deep, possessive kisses that spoke of shared battles and deeper intimacies. "You are too tense, my shogun," she murmured against his mouth. "Let us ease you." But the main event was Eleanor Zoe. The Elephantfolk matriarch was a vision of powerful, voluptuous beauty. With a confident, loving smile, she approached, her sheer presence commanding attention. "I hope this matriarch can satisfy you, my lord," she said, her voice a low, soothing rumble. She guided him, and he went willingly. Soon, he was nestled comfortably between her massive, soft breasts, the world fading away into a haze of warm, scented skin. The agile, sensitive trunk of her personal escort, the stoic and loyal Malcolm, gently traced patterns on Lupin's back, a unique and deeply relaxing massage. The subtle, warm air from the trunk's nostrils was a strangely intimate comfort. From her perch on Malcolm's broad, howdah-like hat, a tiny mousefolk girl named Squeaks giggled, her nose twitching in amusement at the scene. Lupin closed his eyes, a genuine, unburdened smile on his face. This was his happiness. Not just the pleasure, but the trust, the affection, the sheer life that surrounded him. It was the first time, in either of his lives, that he felt truly, completely happy. He was so immersed in the moment, he didn't notice the faint, electric tingle at the edge of his perception. He didn't see, from the window, the strange, pulsing portal that had torn open in the heart of the sacred forest, a silent, glowing omen that their peaceful new lives were about to be violently interrupted. Chapter 3. The Ashes of 616. The air of Earth 616 was thick with smog and despair. The sky, a perpetual, sickly red, was a constant reminder of the cataclysm that had befallen the planet. This was no longer the world of heroes and villains they had known, it was a graveyard of broken ideals. 6 months earlier, the fall. After Spider-Man's death, in prison and the public fracturing of the superhero community, Tony Stark's vision had curdled into a nightmare. With his political opposition silenced and the Registration Act granting him unprecedented control, he shed the mantle of Iron Man and became Superior Iron Man. The Extremis 3.0 virus, once a tool for enhancement, was now a method of control, creating a stratified caste system where the enhanced, loyal to Stark lived in opulence, and the rest were relegated to squalor. America was no longer a symbol of freedom, but a dystopian state. The phrase, "Land of the Free," was replaced with whispers of, "Land of Stark." Nations like Wakanda and those in Europe looked on in horror, severing ties as Stark's regime became increasingly sadistic and isolationist. The rebellion was inevitable, but it was this internal war that made Earth ripe for the picking. The sky turned blood red without warning. From massive, swirling gates that erupted over every major city, poured forth creatures of nightmare, magical beasts with hides impervious to repulsor rays and strength that could tear through adamantium. They were an extinction-level event. Stark's forces were dismantled. The corrupted shield under Maria Hill was overrun, she was torn apart by hounds of energy and shadow. Heroes who had sided with Stark fell one by one. Hank Pym and Reed Richards, architects of the regime's technology, were hunted and killed, their brilliance no match for primal, magical fury. The devastation was global. Atlantis was scoured from the ocean floor, its people rendered extinct, a reanimated Namor forced to watch his kingdom's corpse. Hawkeye died in a futile last stand, ripped limb from limb. The mutant population was decimated, reduced to a scant 20%. The world, torn apart by a civil war of ego, was now being unified in its annihilation. The rebirth, the Hunter Association. From the ashes, a new hope emerged. The cataclysm had not just brought destruction, it had infused the world with mana, awakening latent potentials in humanity. The age of heroes was over. The age of hunters had begun. Leading this resurgence was David Washington, a direct descendant of George Washington and an S-rank hunter. He rallied the survivors from the ruins of the Raft Penitentiary Mark II, where Stark had imprisoned his enemies, and united the pockets of resistance across the globe. Standing before a crowd in the rebuilt shell of Washington, D.C., his voice carried the weight of history and the promise of a future. "My fellow people," he began, his voice steady and strong. What happened with Stark was not leadership. It was the arrogance of a man who believed his power gave him the right to dictate morality. He drove this country, and this world, to the brink of oblivion. The civil war between heroes did not protect us, it tore us apart. Look around you. This was meant to be a land of freedom. He paused, letting the silence emphasize the devastation. Instead, Tony Stank and his ilk created a caste system where the strong walked upon the weak. No more. America must be a symbol of freedom and equality once again. We are the descendants of those who dreamed of a better world, not a perfectly controlled one. This cataclysm, perhaps it was a punishment for our ignorance, our greed, our selfishness. But it is also our chance. May history never repeat itself, he declared, his voice rising with passionate conviction. Let this be the lesson that forges a better future, a future built on hope, equality, and unity. The crowd erupted in cheers. The old world was gone. The guild system, a global network of hunters who took contracts to clear gates and protect humanity, replaced the corrupt and fallen institutions. Earth 616 was rebuilt, scarred but wiser. It was a world without Avengers, without a shield, without the Fantastic Four. It was a world of hunters, guilds, and a hard-won peace. Epilogue. An unfinished symphony. As Peter and Lupin observed this new world from the shadows, hidden by cloaks and their own immense power, they felt a complex mix of emotions. Vindication, for the fall of their betrayers. Pity, for the innocent lives lost. But also, a profound sense of closure. The world they had left behind had faced its judgment and been reborn on its own terms. It seems they didn't need saving after all, Peter murmured, the geocrystals in his pocket humming softly. They saved themselves. Lupin nodded, a crackle of violet energy sparking and fading in his palm. A fitting end for Stark. To be destroyed by the very chaos his arrogance unleashed. They turned their backs on the new world, ready to step back through the portal to their own lives, to their loves, and to their rightful places as monarchs of their own domains. But as the portal closed behind them, neither knew that their brief presence had not gone entirely unnoticed. In the headquarters of the newly formed Hunter Association, a sensor blinked, detecting an energy signature of immense, unfamiliar power, a blend of deep earth and storm-wrought lightning. The world of 616 had rebuilt itself. But the return of its two prodigal sons, now gods in their own right, was a variable it was not prepared for. The story of Earth 616 was not over, it was simply waiting for its next chapter to begin. Chapter 4, The Return. The blue gate hummed, a portal of shimmering cerulean energy. Peter Kixing stood before it, Fenris and Bilary at his side, their forms tense with anticipation. In another world, before an identical gate, Lupin Shogun waited, Crystal Nova T, Nephrites, and Eleanor Zoe flanking him. Both men, veterans of a life they despised, felt the same pull, a call to somewhere new, a true second chance. The gate's light shifted. Blue deepened, then flashed into a violent, warning crimson. And then, they stepped through. The transit was not a gentle drift, but a violent, spatial puncture. Reality tore, and for a dizzying moment, the two parties, from separate worlds, on parallel journeys, saw each other. Peter's amber geo-infused eyes met Lupin's crackling electro-blue gaze across the chaotic void. A flash of recognition, of shared pain and defiant hope, passed between them before the world solidified. They landed not in a new world, but in a frozen hellscape. The shock of cold was immediate. And so was the presence of others, a bedraggled group of hunters, a young man with an aura of profound shadows, and a terrified Arab woman. Sanju's shadow-attuned senses prickled the moment the two new groups materialized. His eyes widened. Two of them. One radiated a deep, tectonic steadiness, the patience and pressure of stone. The other was a storm contained in human form, a live wire of lethal, precise voltage. Powers that mirrored the primal forces of the world, yet felt utterly alien in their depth. Austin moved to handle the encroaching ice bears, but the air was already thick with new tensions. The Arab woman, Nectarius, stared at Nephrites, her fear palpable. Your ears, they look like elves. Nephrites offered a small, wary smile. I am an elf, but not like the ones here. Before more could be said, a new, toxic presence erupted into the clearing. Hunter Kim, his face twisted with fury and cowardice, stormed in. He ignored the carnage left by the ice elves, ignored his own frozen, fallen teammates. His blade was drawn, pointed at the survivors. Who did this? Which one of you failures caused this? He never saw the retaliation coming. Sanju moved like liquid darkness. Lupin moved like a lightning strike. Peter moved like a shifting mountain. A shadowy tendril wrapped Kim's wrist. A boot clad in crackling energy impacted his chest. A fist sheathed in condensed stone slammed into his jaw. The combination was brutal, synchronized, and final. Hunter Kim was disarmed, broken, and hurled across the snow before he could blink. And then, the true threat arrived. The ice elves descended, a glacial wave of malice. As Sanju tried to parley, a bizarre distortion flickered across the lead elf's form, a digital glitch, a stutter in reality itself. Sanju noticed. They noticed. Peter and Lupin's enhanced senses, one attuned to the stability of Earth, the other to the flow of energy, both caught the unnatural error. This was wrong. Enough talk, Peter muttered, his voice low like grinding stones. Agreed, Lupin stated, his tone the calm before the thunderclap. What followed was not a battle. It was an exhibition. Sanju raised his hands, and an army of shadows spilled forth, engaging the elves in a swirling dance of darkness. Peter didn't just wield earth, he commanded the frozen landscape. With a stomp, the snow and rock coalesced into hulking, animated snow golems, their fists like glacial boulders, crashing through elven ranks with ponderous, unstoppable force. Lupin didn't just summon lightning, he sculpted it. From the crackling aura around him, electro-samurai materialized, warriors of pure, buzzing voltage, their movements blindingly fast. They weaved through the shadows and golems, blades of solidified lightning performing precise, annihilating cuts. Lupin himself moved among them, a Saiyan's battle joy flashing in his eyes as his own electro-keyblade severed weapons and armor alike. It was a symphony of overpowering force. Shadow, stone, and storm. The ice elves, formidable hunters of the frost, were dismantled. Their leader fell to a combined final blow, a shadow spear from Sanju, a geokinetic shockwave from Peter, and a devastating, spear-hand lightning thrust from Lupin. Silence returned to the frozen field, broken only by the fading crackle of electricity and the settling of rock. The gate glowed blue once more. The survivors stepped through, emerging into the familiar, yet painfully alien, bustle of soul. Peter and Lupin froze. The air, the scent, the chaotic energy, it was undeniably Earth. But not theirs. This was 616. A 616 that had moved on without them. The White Tiger Guild's reception was a blur of noise and shocked faces. Concerns about Kim's party were met with Lupin's cold, factual report, his hand raised for silence. Hunter Kim succumbed to madness and cowardice, abandoning his team to die. He attacked us. We responded with terminal force. It was self-defense. The finality in his voice brooked no argument. Chapter 5, A World Remade. In the days that followed, Peter and Lupin learned the brutal truth of their absence. Time had flowed differently. Years had passed. Their old world, the one that had betrayed and discarded them, had cannibalized itself in their absence. The Avengers were scattered, many dead or retired. The Fantastic Four had been fractured by loss. The X-Men had suffered a devastating, final schism. S.H.I.E.L.D. was a ghost, its ruins littered with scandals. The great pillars of their past were dust. Peter felt no grief, only a cold, granite-hard confirmation. Lupin felt no sorrow, only the quiet hum of vindication. The systems that had used them, the heroes who had stood by as they fell, had reaped what they sowed. Using discrete applications of their abilities and Lupin's sharp intellect, they secured identities in a modest urban safe house, a far cry from a home, but a base. Their partners watched in awe as they navigated this world of staggering technology. Fenris marveled at the sky chariots, cars. Bilary was captivated by the endless information streams. Crystal, Nephrites, and Eleanor moved through the neon-lit streets with a mixture of trepidation and wonder. Don't draw attention, Peter warned, his voice barely a whisper. Don't say our old names. They're likely all dead to us anyway, Lupin added, his gaze scanning the crowds for threats, his electro-reception a subtle radar. The thought of his old crew brought a pang, but he buried it under Saiyan discipline. The past was a poison. The Hunter Association's evaluation was a farce they endured. Their party members underwent tests, earning respectable B ranks, their otherworldly abilities carefully masked as unique magical talents. Then it was their turn. The testing chamber was meant for S-rank threats. For Peter, it was a playground. He didn't just block attacks, he dissolved them into sand with earth putrefaction, or raised instantaneous, ornate walls of solidified granite. He rode a slab of rock in a display of geokinetic surfing, moving with impossible agility. For Lupin, it was a demonstration of lethal grace. He didn't dodge projectile sensors, he let them pass through an electrokinetic clone, his real body appearing elsewhere in a lightning step. He caught high-velocity rounds in an electric force field, then melted them into slag with a thought. He manifested a blade of pure lightning and demonstrated pressure-precise strikes, carving a perfect circle out of a titanium slab from across the room. The results were immediate. S rank. Both of them. In private, the chairman, Go Gunhee, looked older than the mountains Peter could now command. His eyes held a deep, weary knowledge. Your power, it is not of this world. Yet you are of it. The system would panic. You will be registered as A rank for public record. But between us, welcome, true S ranks. The 11th and 12th of Korea. He saw not just power, but the weight of another life in their eyes. A weight he chose not to pry into. The news still spread. Sung Jin-woo, the 10th S rank though they were now 11th and 12th, heard of the two new anomalies. The memory of the Red Gate flashed in his mind, the man who moved with the weight of continents, and the one who moved with the speed of a storm. He had felt their auras, seen them summon armies as he did. Not shadows, but elementals. A question now burned in Jin-woo's mind, a curiosity that would not fade. Who are you really? He thought, watching from a distance as Peter and Lupin left the association building, their new licenses in hand, their loyal otherworldly companions beside them. Peter looked up at the smog-tinged sky of Seoul, feeling the deep pulse of the planet beneath his feet, a connection far deeper than he ever had as Spider-Man. Lupin felt the static charge in the air, the energy of a billion lives and machines, a symphony he could now conduct. His tail, carefully concealed, twitched with restrained potential. They were back. But they were not the same. The world that had imprisoned and forgotten them was now the stage. And they were no longer its pawns. They were its unseen monarchs, one of earth, one of storm, ready to build a new life from the ruins of the old, on their own terms. Chapter 6, Gates of Salvation. Over the course of weeks, the two monarchs, now officially registered as the 11th and 12th S rank hunters of Korea, spearheaded the assault on the gates that had become humanity's new normal. They often operated separately, their unique talents allowing them to cleanse dungeons with terrifying efficiency. Lupin, the chaotic gate. Lupin found himself before an anomaly. The gate pulsed not with the familiar earthen or arcane energy of a standard dungeon, but with erratic, chaotic frequency that prickled his electro-reception. The air around it shimmered with unstable potential. Huh, that's interesting, Lupin murmured, his Saiyan instincts humming with alertness. Never seen a resonance like that before. He entered without hesitation. The world inside was not a cavern or a castle, but a vast, sun-drenched plain of alien vegetation. Giant, bioluminescent fungi dotted a landscape of twisting vines and crystalline trees. The mana here felt old and wild, untamed. Everything here seems different, Lupin observed, his hand resting on the hilt of his katana. Hey, you! A gruff voice snarled from behind a thicket. Lupin didn't need to turn. His enhanced senses had mapped the 5 individuals the moment he stepped through. Their auras were feral, greedy, and stained with violence. Bandits. What the hell do you want? Lupin asked, his voice flat and devoid of fear. Give us your gear, all of it, or we spill your guts on this pretty grass, their leader barked, brandishing a crude, mana-infused axe. Lupin's response was a silent blur of violet lightning. He didn't draw his blade, it simply appeared in his hand, summoned from pure electro-ki energy. In one fluid motion, he closed the distance and beheaded the speaker before the man's smirk could fade. The remaining bandits lunged, but they were moving through syrup compared to Lupin's electrically enhanced speed. He weaved between them, his blade a conductor for precise, fatal currents. One he crippled with a kick that shattered a knee, followed by a touch that overloaded his nervous system, leaving him a twitching husk. Within 3 seconds, it was over. As the last body thudded to the vibrant grass, a translucent screen materialized before Lupin's eyes, the hunter system interface but with a quest prompt he'd never seen. New objective, chaotic salvation. Locate the bandit settlement. Free the captives. Offer them a choice. A rescue mission, Lupin said, a flicker of genuine purpose cutting through his usual battle stoicism. Wouldn't be that hard. With a crackle of lightning, he was gone, a violet streak darting across the plains towards the plume of crude smoke on the horizon. Peter, the crystalline necropolis. Meanwhile, Peter Kixing descended into a dungeon that was a study in stark, lifeless geometry. The air was cold and still, the walls and floors composed of seamless, dark gray stone. The only light came from the pulsing, sickly green crystals embedded everywhere, and from the shambling forms they animated. Zombies, but made of crystal, Peter muttered, watching as a cluster of jagged, humanoid figures clattered towards him. They moved with a horrifying, jerky grace, their bodies formed of interlocking shards. He didn't need his staff. A mere stomp of his foot sent a localized earthquake through the floor, shattering a dozen of them into inert gem dust. He moved forward like a force of nature, walls rising to funnel enemies, spikes erupting to impale them, and the very floor swallowing them whole. His geotelekinesis was absolute here, the dungeon was his element. At the heart of the necropolis, he found the core. Not a beast, but a being, the cube assassin. It was a humanoid figure, its body a mosaic of thousands of shifting, razor-edged crystalline cubes that constantly reconfigured. Monarch of Geo, it hissed, its voice the sound of grinding stone. You have come to my domain. You will become part of my collection. You aren't the first strangest thing I've ever seen, Peter replied, his tone weary rather than afraid. He finally summoned his staff, the geo crystal flaring with amber light. But you'll be the latest. The cube assassin lunged, its form blurring as it launched shards like monomolecular knives. Peter didn't dodge. A multi-layered shield of condensed earth, harder than diamond, sprouted before him, deflecting the barrage. He countered by thrusting his staff into the ground. A wave of earth putrefaction radiated out, turning the solid floor around the assassin into sucking, corrosive quicksand that began to dissolve its crystalline feet. The battle was one of overwhelming dominion. Peter used geomechanics manipulation to cause the assassin's own cube blades to misfire and turn against it. Finally, with a gesture, he caused the ceiling high above to collapse into a single, massive spear of bedrock, which he telekinetically drove down through the core of the cube assassin, pinning it to the floor. It shattered with a sound like a chandelier falling. Dungeon cleared. Experience points awarded. Level 155 attained. Bonus reward. Weapon, Prism Blade, acquired. Bonus reward. Skill, Petrifying Gaze, acquired. A new weapon materialized in his hand, a sleek, double-edged blade that seemed forged from condensed sunlight and solid earth. He willed it, and it shot forward like a beam, piercing a distant wall before returning. A ranged blade attack. Useful, he noted. Guess my work here is done. Lupin. The silent liberation. Back in the chaotic gate, Lupin observed the bandit camp from a high cliff. His electroreception and Saiyan senses painted a detailed picture. 23 bandits, 15 captives in wooden cages, 3 lookouts. He felt the fear of the prisoners, the cruel amusement of their captors. Those damn bastards, he whispered, a cold fury settling in his gut. This wasn't a dungeon boss, this was predation. He would respond in kind. He became a ghost. Electrokinetic invisibility bent light around him as he dropped into the camp's shadows. The first lookout died without a sound, a blade of solidified lightning piercing his heart from behind. Lupin moved through the camp like a deadly current, using lightning step to appear, kill, and vanish. Bandits dropped, their throats slit by unseen blades, their bodies briefly illuminated by the violet afterglow of an electro-infused pressure point strike that stopped their hearts. Who's killing us? One bandit finally screamed, panicked. How should I know? Another yelled back. Their answer came as Lupin dropped between them, his invisibility flickering off. His katana flashed twice in the firelight, and 2 heads rolled. He didn't stop. With a thought, he summoned 3 electrical constructs in the form of silent, armored electro-samurais. They flashed through the camp, their phantom blades leaving trails of ozone and death. The bandit leader, a hulking brute with a scarred face, emerged from the largest tent, his aura burning with rage. I'll skin you alive. Like I said, Lupin stated, his katana held loosely at his side, do not underestimate your opponent. Now, die for your sins. The leader charged, his axe glowing with brute force mana. Lupin met him head on, their weapons clashing in a shower of sparks. The brute was strong, but slow. Lupin flowed around his attacks, his sword leaving shallow, crackling cuts that slowly sapped the man's strength with each touch of electric infusion. When the leader tried a desperate, wild swing, one of Lupin's electro-samurais materialized and slashed deeply across his back. The man screamed, stumbling forward. Lupin didn't give him a moment. He raised his free hand, gathering a swirling, screaming ball of violet and blue lightning, a fusion of electro and Saiyan ki. Reikoken, he intoned softly, and thrust the ball forward. It engulfed the bandit leader, and where there had been a man, there was only a scorched patch of earth and the smell of ozone. Dungeon cleared. Experience points awarded. Level 206 attained. Time to free the prisoners, Lupin said, sheathing his blade. The captives stared at him with a mixture of awe and terror as he shattered their cages with precise lightning bolts. Why did you save us? One elderly man stammered. I've never seen anyone move like that, a young boy whispered, eyes wide. You were like an assassin in a storm. My name is Lupin Lee Shogun, he said, his stern voice softening. Behind him, the gate swirled back to life, showing a glimpse of a modern city street at night. This gate will lead you to my world. I will not force you. It is your choice. You can find your own path here, or you can come with me. My guild can offer you food, shelter, and safety. A place to start anew. He saw the conflict in their eyes, fear of the unknown versus the memory of cages. I know you have no reason to trust me. But I freed you. You deserve to choose your own lives. In the end, a group of 8, mostly orphans and those with nothing left to lose, chose to follow him through the portal. Their gasps as they emerged into the neon-lit night of downtown Seoul, seeing soaring skyscrapers and hovering cars, were payment enough for Lupin. A quick call to Chairman Go Gun. He secured humanitarian aid, food, clothing, temporary housing. The Hunter Association was equipped for such oddities. As Lupin prepared to leave, a small hand tugged on his hakama. He looked down to see a girl no older than 10, with hair the color of aquamarine and eyes that held a depth of sorrow far beyond her years. Excuse me, sir, she said, her voice quiet but steady. My name is Ivy. I have nowhere to go. If it's all right, could I stay with you? Lupin knelt, meeting her gaze. He saw not just a refugee, but a spark of resilience. After a moment, he gave a single, firm nod. Yes, you can. As he drove his sleek, black car towards his estate, with Ivy watching the city lights blur past in silent wonder, neither of them realized the full truth. The gates they had entered today were not mere random dungeons. They were different. They were adaptive, reacting to the hunters who entered, presenting challenges and opportunities, tailored not just to their power, but to their souls. The chaotic gate had offered Lupin a chance to be more than a destroyer. It had offered him a chance to save, and to adopt. The system was changing, and the 2 monarchs were at the heart of it. Chapter 7. Family, Found. After adopting Ivy and a quick stop at a gas station for essential supplies, chips, Gatorade, and a surprisingly popular brand of cheese puffs, Lupin navigated the sleek car back through the night-lit arteries of the city. In the passenger seat, Ivy marveled at each bite, her eyes wide. This food, it's different, she whispered, holding a neon orange chip like a sacred artifact. It tastes so delicious. And amazing. Well, welcome to the modern world, kiddo, Lupin said, a faint smile touching his lips as the traffic light turned green. The hum of the engine filled the comfortable silence for a while. Lupin's sharp eyes, however, didn't miss the subtle shifts in Ivy's posture whenever they passed a particularly bright billboard or a crowded bus stop. There was a wariness there, a ghost haunting her young eyes. So, kid, he began, his voice deliberately casual as he focused on the road. I'm curious, where exactly are you from? And how did you end up in that gate? Ivy's chewing stopped. The bag of chips crinkled softly in her tight grip as she looked down at her lap. The light-hearted mood evaporated, replaced by a heavy, palpable sorrow. Lupin immediately sensed the change. His intuitive aptitude, honed by both ninjutsu and Saiyan perception, read the tension in her small frame. Oh, sorry. Guess I'm just curious, that's all. I didn't mean to. He let the sentence hang, giving her space. No, Ivy said quietly, her voice firmer than he expected. You have a right to know. You saved me. She took a shaky breath. In my world, people are born with stars. They determine your magic, your worth, your entire life. I was a starless child. Lupin's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. The concept was alien, but the cruelty it implied was universal. My family, they didn't care for me. Said I was a drain, a shame. They left me to die in the Whispering Woods. When I somehow survived, they sent hunters. To clean up their mistake. I ran until I couldn't run anymore, and I fell into a cave that wasn't a cave, it was that gate. And then the bandits found me. The car was silent save for the road noise. Lupin said nothing for a long moment. The story was a stark, brutal echo of injustices he knew too well. Peter's betrayal, his own past as a discarded trickster, the systemic cruelty of the world they'd left behind. But this was targeted at a child. It wasn't just unfair, it was a profound, disgusting crime. He reached over, not taking his eyes off the road, and placed a large, warm hand gently on top of Ivy's head. His touch was careful, a steady and grounding pressure. Then you'll be safe with me, kiddo. No stars, no hunters, no family that doesn't deserve the name. He gave her hair a soft ruffle. Soon, you'll meet your new big sisters. And, well, some pet animals I might have acquired. Things might get a little chaotic. Ivy looked up, her aquamarine eyes wide with a mixture of shock and dawning hope. You have pet animals. A genuine grin spread across Lupin's face. Yeah, let's just say they're the most excitable ones. Trust me, when we get there, you're in for an experience. They finally arrived at Lupin's estate, a sprawling, modern Japanese-style compound nestled in a secluded, forested valley far from the city's glare. It was a place of serene gardens, tranquil koi ponds, and deceptively simple architecture that hid immense security and comfort. Ivy gasped as they parked in the garage. Wow, this is your house. It's not much, Lupin said with a shrug, though a note of pride was in his voice. But it's home. I had to work very hard to earn it. Started at the bottom, just like everyone else. If you're willing to get strong, to train and prove everyone who ever thought you were weak wrong, you can have a place like this too. He knelt to her level, his violet eyes serious but kind. Strength isn't just about power, Ivy. It's about the will to protect what matters. You've already got that. Ivy's small face set with a determined expression. She nodded firmly. Okay, I'm ready. As they approached the grand front door, Lupin's enhanced hearing picked up the commotion from within. A cacophony of angry elephant trumpets, high-pitched squeaking, and the sound of furniture skidding across polished floors. He sighed, the serene homecoming evaporating. He opened the door to a scene of domestic anarchy. In the vast, minimalist living room, two of Eleanor's loyal African bush elephant escorts, Malcolm and his companion Tusk, were in full pursuit. Their massive feet stomped with earth-shaking thuds, narrowly missing a darting, panicked blur, Nezumi Squeaks, the Mouskin girl. She was a frantic pinball of motion, her tail standing straight up. Okay, I'm sorry. Sheesh, Squeaks yelped, dodging a vacuum-like suck from Malcolm's trunk that nearly pulled her off her feet. The trunk grabbed a throw pillow instead and flung it at her in pachyderm peak. I was hungry too, you oversized, walking trash bags. You don't have to hog all the gourmet peanuts. She shot back, scrambling onto the back of a low sofa. This only incensed the elephants further. One trunk snaked out with surprising speed, wrapped around her middle, and lifted her, squirming and squeaking, into the air before gently but firmly planting her on the kitchen counter. Both elephants loomed over her, their trunks crossed, nostrils flaring in clear, judgmental glares. Okay, I surrender. No more peanut heists. Mercy. What in the world is going on here? Lupin's voice cut through the chaos, calm but carrying the weight of a coming storm. Everyone froze. The elephants turned, their ears flapping guiltily. Nezumi Squeaks slumped in relief on the counter. Do I want to know what happened while I was gone? Lupin asked, arching an eyebrow. A chorus of pointing ensued. Trunks and a tiny mouse hand all aimed accusingly at Nezumi Squeaks. Okay, fine, she groaned, throwing her hands up. Yes, I maybe, sorta, borrowed a few handfuls of their specially imported, honey-roasted, ultra-premium peanuts. But they're like living, breathing vacuum cleaners. They inhale everything. You realize, Lupin said, pinching the bridge of his nose, that there is an entire fridge full of vegetables, apples, fruits, things with actual vitamins and protein. Things that won't cause an international incident with the elephant folk delegation. I know. But the peanuts, Squeaks began. No, Lupin stated, his tone leaving no room for argument. Look, I've had a long day. I don't want to hear any more drama. That goes for you all. He leveled a look at the elephants, who had the decency to look chastised, lowering their heads and shuffling their huge feet. It was then that the group noticed the small girl hiding slightly behind Lupin's leg. Ivy stepped forward, her earlier trepidation replaced by pure wonder. Oh my god, you really do have animals. And they're so big. She approached Malcolm slowly, her hand outstretched. The great elephant watched her, then gently lowered his trunk. Ivy stroked the rough, warm skin, a radiant smile breaking across her face. Malcolm let out a soft, approving rumble, nuzzling her hand. Nezumi Squeaks, still on the counter, put her hands on her hips. Hey now, what about me? Don't I get a hello? Ivy turned, her eyes widening further. Oh, you're a person. but with ears and a tail. What are you exactly? TCH. What do you think I am? Squeaks said, hopping down. I'm a mousekin. And yeah, mouse and elephants don't always get along. Mostly 'cause these big lugs have no sense of humor about shared snacks. She stuck her tongue out at Malcolm, who huffed but then, with a gentleness that belied his size, nudged her forehead with the tip of his trunk. Squeaks giggled and patted it. Yeah, you big softy. The scene was interrupted by a warm, melodic voice. Oh my. And who is this little cutie? Eleanor Zoe emerged from the hallway, her majestic form a vision of graceful power. She knelt, bringing herself to Ivy's eye level, her kind eyes crinkling. Tell me your name, little one. I'm Ivy, the girl said, mesmerized by the Elephantkin matriarch. That's a beautiful name. You can call me Eleanor Zoe. I am the matriarch of my heart, she said, gesturing to the elephants who stood a little straighter, and these are my loyal friends and family. The elephants gave a synchronized, dignified bow of their heads, which Ivy returned with a clumsy but earnest little bow of her own. Soon, the rest of the household gathered. Nephrites the elf glided in, her ethereal beauty causing Ivy to stare in awe. Crystal Novity followed, her pragmatic warmth immediately putting the girl at ease. They fussed over her, asking gentle questions, offering more snacks non-peanut variety, and welcoming her into the fold with an effortless affection that filled the grand space with a tangible, loving light. Ivy, surrounded by towering elephants, a mystical elf, a noble hunter, a chaotic mousekin, and the steadfast presence of her new big brother Lupin, felt something she hadn't felt since before her stars were measured. She felt found. She was home. And for the first time in her young life, the future didn't seem like a terrifying expanse of darkness, but a path leading forward, lit by the strange, wonderful, and fiercely protective family she had just stumbled into. Chapter 8, Forging Strength. 2 months later, the training grounds of the Shogun Temple Empire had been transformed into a crucible of power. Craters dotted the landscape, trees had been reduced to splinters, and the air itself crackled with residual energy day and night. Lupin stood at the center of it all, shirtless, sweat gleaming on his powerful Saiyan frame. His electro-aura flickered around him like a living storm as he moved through complex katas, each strike generating thunderclaps that echoed across the valley. Nearby, Ivy practiced with daggers twice the size recommended for her age, her aquamarine hair whipping around her determined face as she struck training dummies with precision. Under Lupin's tutelage, the starless girl had discovered she wasn't weak at all, she simply needed the right teacher. Good, Ivy. Keep your stance lower, center of gravity stable, Lupin called out, his voice carrying over the wind. Yes, big brother. Ivy responded, adjusting her form immediately. Then Lupin felt it, a pulse of murderous intent so powerful it made the hairs on his arms stand up. It came from the south. From Jigu Island. He stopped mid-strike, his violet eyes narrowing as he turned toward the horizon. His Saiyan instinct screamed a warning. Something dangerous had just awakened. What's wrong, big brother? Ivy asked, lowering her daggers and approaching with concern. Lupin forced his expression to remain calm. Nothing, really. Felt something, but probably just a squirrel. He ruffled her hair, earning a giggle. Now, back to training. Those monsters won't defeat themselves. But in the back of his mind, the warning lingered. Something is coming. Seoul, Kixing Clan Training Facility. Peter Kixing moved like an avalanche given human form. His geo-empowered strikes shattered boulders into dust while his staff twirled in complex patterns that would have broken normal human wrists. The ground beneath him rose and fell at his command, shaping itself into obstacles, weapons, and shields in a seamless flow. Across from him, Deadpool cartwheeled through a hail of stone spikes, his new mana-enhanced regeneration allowing him to recover from grazing hits instantly. His healing factor had evolved, no longer the cancer-ridden mess of his past life, but a clean, efficient system that kept his perfectly beautiful face intact. Would you look at that, people? Deadpool announced to an empty training yard, breaking the fourth wall with practiced ease. I'm finally back. Deadpool is back. Better than ever before. My healing factor works, my skin is flawless, and I no longer look like a burnt avocado that survived a house fire. Moon Knight, his form flickering with lunar energy, landed nearby. His control over Khonshu's power had grown tremendously, from an E-rank struggler to a solid A-rank hunter. His white armor gleamed with inner light. "Deadpool," Moon Knight said flatly. "I don't think the author appreciates you breaking the fourth wall. It's bad enough you keep doing it." "Hey, come on now, Mark Y," Deadpool shot back. "At least the audience likes it." Right. He winked at an imaginary camera. Peter lowered his staff, shaking his head with a small smile. Despite the chaos, he'd grown fond of his fellow survivors from 616. They understood, in ways that others couldn't, the weight of having been discarded by the world they once saved. Speaking of audiences, Peter said, "Tomorrow we have to face the Japanese hunters. We need to act professional, not like a bunch of degenerates." "Aw, man," Deadpool pouted, crossing his arms. "You're no fun at all. Where's your sense of dramatic flair?" "I left it in the same place I left my web shooters," Peter replied dryly. "In another life." Moon Knight chuckled, a rare sound. "Professionalism I can do. It's the, not killing anyone, part that might be difficult." Peter nodded, his expression growing serious. They all felt it. The winds were changing. Jigu Island loomed on the horizon like a gathering storm, and tomorrow's spar with the Japanese hunters would be the first true test of their strength in this new world. Chapter 9, The Spar. The stadium hummed with anticipation. Thousands of spectators filled the stands, civilians, lower-rank hunters, media representatives from across Asia. Today wasn't just a spar, it was a statement. Korea versus Japan, the old guard versus the new. Director Go Gun. He sat in the VIP section, his aged face calm but his eyes sharp as he observed both teams. The Korean side had changed dramatically in recent months. Alongside the established S ranks like Cha Hae-in and Choi Jong-in stood newcomers who had already rewritten the power rankings. Peter Kixing, the monarch of Geo. Lupin Shogun, the monarch of Electro. Their companions, Deadpool, whose regeneration had made him virtually unkillable. Moon Knight, now an A- rank with divine backing. Fenris the Lupine Demoness, Bilary the healer, Crystal Novati, Nephrites the elf, and Little Ivy, watching from the stands with wide, awed eyes. The Japanese team was equally formidable. Goto Ryuji, their strongest, led a contingent of elite S ranks including Matsumoto Shigeo, Raiji Sugimoto, and the volatile Kanae Tawada. Behind them stood a masked hunter whose eyes glowed with barely contained bloodlust. "Begin," the referee announced. What followed was a symphony of violence. Baekhyun-ho transformed into his beast form, clashing with Matsumoto's earth-shattering strikes. Choi Jong-in's flames met Raiji's water manipulation in explosions of steam. Cha Hae-in moved like a ghost, her blade seeking openings that her opponents desperately tried to cover. Lupin watched from the sidelines, his electro senses cataloging every movement, every technique, every weakness. "Their forms are good," he murmured to Peter. "But I see openings. Goto relies too heavily on brute strength. The masked one, he's unstable. His eyes keep darting to the crowd." Peter nodded, his geo-enhanced perception feeling the tremors of each impact. "Cha Hae-in is tiring. She's been fighting back-to-back matches." One by one, hunters fell. Lim Tae-gyu was disarmed and yielded. Akari Shimizu, the Japanese healer, was gently but firmly pinned by Baekhyun-ho. The score mounted. Then Cha Hae-in faced Kanae Tawada. The masked Japanese hunter had been waiting for this moment. As the match began, something snapped. Kanae's eyes went completely feral, her aura surging with uncontrolled, murderous intent. She launched at Cha Hae-in with killing force, not sparring intensity, but genuine bloodlust. Cha Hae-in's blade came up, but she was already exhausted. The impact would. Boom. A rocket-propelled fist slammed into Kanae's face at Mach speed, sending her flying sideways. Before she could recover, Lupin Shogun appeared above her in a crackle of violet lightning, grabbed her by the collar, and executed a flawless suplex that cratered the ground. Kanae lay still, unconscious. Lupin stood, dusting off his hands, his expression calm but his eyes cold. "I have to admit, you've got potential. But going berserk like that." He glanced at the stunned Japanese delegation. "That's not exactly appropriate for a sparring match." The stadium erupted. Some cheered, some protested. But the message was clear: Korea's new S ranks played by different rules. Goto Ryuji stepped forward, his massive frame radiating controlled fury. That was unnecessary. She would have stopped. Would she? Lupin met his gaze without flinching. Your hunter was about to kill one of ours. I merely intervened. Goto's eyes narrowed. Then perhaps you and I should settle this. One match. Now. The crowd held its breath. Two S-rank powerhouses, about to clash. Lupin's lips curved into a faint smile. I accept. They faced off in the center of the arena. Goto launched first, a thunderous rush of pure physical power that would have flattened a building. Lupin ducked, weaved, sidestepped. His movements were economy itself, wasting no energy, reading Goto's attacks before they fully formed. Peter watched from the sidelines, his staff ready if things went too far. He's toying with him, he murmured. Deadpool nodded. Yep, pretty boys using maybe 20%. Gotta respect the restraint. Goto grew frustrated. His attacks became wilder, more desperate. Fight me properly, he roared. Lupin's eyes flashed violet. As you wish. 40%. He moved. Not faster, instantly. One moment he was dodging, the next, his fist was an inch from Goto's face, crackling with enough electro-ki to vaporize a tank. Goto's eyes went wide with primal fear. I could end this, Lupin said quietly, his voice carrying in the silent arena. But I won't. Because unlike your hunter, I have control. A stone hand gripped Lupin's shoulder. Peter stood beside him, his expression calm but firm. That's enough. Calm down. You almost actually killed the guy. Lupin's aura subsided. He lowered his fist and stepped back. Apologies. Got carried away. Aw man, but I wanted to see him dead. Deadpool whined from the sidelines. No one asked you, Wade, Peter shot back. From the stands, Ivy's voice rang out, pure and delighted, Big Brother so cool. The tension broke. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Even some of the Japanese hunters cracked smiles at the absurdity, a little girl calling the terrifying Electro Monarch cool, like he was an older brother showing off. Director Go Gun he rose, his voice carrying authority. The spar is concluded. Both sides have demonstrated remarkable skill. However, his gaze swept over the Japanese delegation. We must address the incident with Hunter Tawada. Uncontrolled bloodlust has no place in friendly competition. The Japanese lead hunter, Matsumoto Shigeo, bowed deeply. We apologize. Kanae has issues. We will ensure she receives proper evaluation and treatment. Go nodded graciously. Accepted. Now, if the Korean and Japanese S ranks would join me for a private meeting, we have matters to discuss. Matters of Jigu Island. Private conference room. The atmosphere was more subdued now, the competitive fire banked in favor of grim practicality. Maps of Jigu Island covered the table, with red markers indicating the growing ant nest and estimated threat levels. Director Go stood at the head. As you all know, Jigu Island has become a catastrophic threat. The ant queen continues to spawn, and intelligence suggests a new type of ant has emerged, one with intelligence, cunning, and the ability to use mana. Goto Ryuji frowned. Intelligent ants. That changes everything. It does, Go agreed. Which is why we're forming the largest raid in history. Japan and Korea, working together. But I want two specific hunters on this raid. He looked directly at Peter and Lupin. Peter Kixing. Lupin Shogun. Your abilities are unique. Geo for defense and battlefield control. Electro for speed and devastating offense. We need you. Peter and Lupin exchanged glances. A silent conversation passed between them, memories of another world, another war, another fight that had ended badly. But this was different. Here, they fought for people who hadn't betrayed them. Here, they had families to protect. We'll join, Peter said. Lupin nodded. Count us in. Go's weathered face showed rare relief. Good. The raid begins tomorrow at dawn. Prepare yourselves. As the meeting dispersed, Ivy ran up to Lupin, her aquamarine eyes filled with worry. Big brother, you're going to fight the ants. The scary ones. Lupin knelt, placing a gentle hand on her head. I am. But don't worry. I'll come back. I promise. Ivy hugged him fiercely. You better. You're my family now. You can't leave. Over her head, Lupin met Peter's eyes. Both men understood the weight of that promise. They had failed to protect people before. Never again. Tomorrow, Jigu Island would learn what happens when you threaten the family of two monarchs. Chapter 10. Jigu Island Raid. The morning sun painted the horizon in shades of gold and crimson as helicopters thundered toward Jigu Island. Inside the lead transport, Peter Kixing sat with his eyes closed, feeling the distant rumble of the ocean floor beneath them, the tectonic patience of the earth waiting to be commanded. Beside him, Lupin Shogun checked and rechecked his equipment, violet sparks occasionally leaping between his fingers with restless energy. Nervous? Peter asked without opening his eyes. Lupin snorted softly. Nervous? No. Impatient? Definitely. We've been waiting months for this. Across from them, Sung Jin-woo sat in silence, his shadows pooling at his feet like living things. The three monarchs, Geo, Electro, and Shadow, rode together toward what would become the most significant raid in Korean history. The broadcast drones followed them, transmitting live feeds to every major network across the globe. In living rooms, offices, and command centers worldwide, millions watched the formation of the largest hunter coalition ever assembled. The assault begins. The Japanese strike team moved first, cutting a path toward the Ant Queen's nest with surgical precision. Goto Ryuji led the charge, his blade carving through lesser ants like a scythe through wheat. Matsumoto Shigeo coordinated the assault, his earth manipulation providing cover and creating choke points. Raiji Sugimoto's water techniques washed away waves of chitinous horrors. Meanwhile, the Korean S ranks established a perimeter. Cha Hae-in's blade was a silver blur, her movements economical and deadly. Choi Jong-in's flames incinerated anything that came within range. Baek Yoon-ho, fully transformed, was a maelstrom of claws and fangs, his bestial roar echoing across the island. And in the chaos, the three monarchs carved their own path. Lupin moved like lightning given form, his electro-infused strikes reducing ants to ash before they could register his presence. Peter. 12 o'clock. 30 meters, big one. Peter's response was immediate. The earth beneath their feet surged upward, a wall of stone that intercepted a charging soldier ant the size of a truck. Before the creature could recover, stone spikes erupted from the wall, impaling it from a dozen angles. Got it, Peter said calmly. Sung Jin-woo said nothing. He didn't need to. His shadows, an army of fallen foes, swarmed the battlefield, their dark forms overwhelming ant after ant. The shadow ant he had recently acquired, the one they called the Shadow Ant King, moved with intelligence that bordered on disturbing. From the sidelines, Eleanor Zoe, the elephant kin, planted her massive feet and pushed. A charging wave of ants met her fists, and the wave broke. Her strength was primal, absolute, each swing sent multiple ants flying, their chitinous bodies crumpling like paper. Nephrites the elf stood atop a rocky outcrop, her bow singing. Each arrow found its mark with impossible precision, eyes, joints, the soft membranes between armored plates. She never wasted a shot. Crystal Novati wove spells of fire and force, her magical barriers protecting the healers while her offensive magic carved furrows through the ant ranks. Her eyes kept drifting to Lupin, watching the violet lightning play across his form, and she smiled despite the carnage. Deadpool had somehow acquired a pair of blades he called the God Slayers, their edges shimmering with unstable mana. He carved through ants with gleeful abandon, his commentary a constant stream of profanity and pop culture references that the live broadcast desperately tried to censor. Moon Knight fought in silence, his crescent-shaped weapons finding throats and eyes with mechanical precision. Whatever god he served now, it demanded efficiency, and he delivered. Fenris fought beside Peter, her lupine senses detecting threats before they materialized. When an ant lunged for his blind spot, she was there, her claws opening its throat. They moved in perfect synchronization, predator and partner. The black humanoid ant. Then the mission status changed. Status report. Matsumoto Shigeo's voice crackled over the comm. Silence. Matsumoto. Go to. Anyone, respond. The feed from the Japanese strike team cut to static. On the main broadcast, the cameras caught it, a blur of black chitin, faster than anything that size had a right to be. When the image resolved, Goto Ryuji was on his knees, his blade shattered, blood streaming from a wound across his chest. Around him, the elite Japanese S ranks lay broken. The black humanoid ant stood in their midst, its red eyes gleaming with intelligence that should have been impossible. In its mandibles, it held the head of the Japanese mage, Akari Shimizu. The creature crunched down, and the world watched in horror. All units, converge on the Japanese strike team's position. Baek Yoon-ho roared. The Korean S ranks moved, but they were too far, too slow. By the time they arrived, the Black Ant had already torn through Matsumoto Shigeo, Raiji Sugimoto, and 3 others. Kanae Tawada, her bloodlust finally meeting its match, lay in a pool of her own blood, her mask shattered. Cha Hae-in engaged first. Her blade met the ant's claws in a shower of sparks. For 3 exchanges, they were equals. Then the ant's tail whipped around, catching her across the ribs, and she was sent flying into a rock formation. Baek Yun-ho charged, his bestial strength augmented by rage. The ant met him head-on, and for a moment, they grappled, white fur against black chitin. Then the ant's mandibles found his shoulder, and Baek screamed. Choi Jong-in unleashed his full power, a column of white-hot flame that should have vaporized anything in its path. The ant emerged from the flames, its chitin smoking but intact, and backhanded the fire mage into unconsciousness. In less than 3 minutes, the combined S-rank forces of Korea and Japan had been reduced to scattered, bleeding survivors. The Black Ant stood in the center of the carnage, mandibles dripping, and for a moment, the cameras caught something terrifying in those red eyes. Satisfaction. Arrival of the Monarchs. The broadcast showed it all. Across North America, in living rooms and bars and government bunkers, people watched 3 figures emerge from the smoke. Peter Kixing came first, the earth rising to meet his steps, stone armor forming across his body. Behind him, Fenris moved like a ghost, her claws extended, her eyes locked on the Black Ant. Lupin Shogun appeared in a crackle of violet lightning, Eleanor, Nephrites, and Crystal at his side. His electro-samurai materialized around him, 16 spectral warriors crackling with power, their blades humming with contained lightning. Above them, an electro-dragon formed from pure energy, its wings spanning 30 meters, its roar shaking the island. Sung Jin-woo arrived last, his shadows pooling around him like a living tide. The Shadow Ant King emerged from the darkness, its red eyes meeting the Black Ant's red eyes in silent acknowledgement of what they were. The Black Ant studied them, and for the first time, something like wariness entered its gaze. Lupin didn't give it time to plan. Dancing thunder, advance. The electro-samurai moved as one, their blades weaving a net of lightning that forced the Black Ant back. Eleanor charged from the flank, her fist connecting with the ant's side with enough force to crater the ground. The ant recovered, lunging for her throat, but Nephrite's arrow took it in the eye, forcing it to abort. Crystal's spells locked its legs in ice long enough for Sung Jin-woo to close the distance. His daggers found the joints in its armor, slicing tendons, opening wounds that bled black ichor. The ant fought back with desperate fury, its claws raking across Sung Jin-woo's chest. The Shadow Monarch stumbled, blood spraying. And Lupin was there. His fist, wreathed in enough electricity to power a city, slammed into the ant's face. The creature's head snapped back, chitin cracking. Before it could recover, Peter's geokinetic grasp closed around its legs, stone flowing upward to encase it. Now, Peter shouted. Sung Jin-woo's shadows surged forward, pinning the ant's limbs. The Shadow Monarch placed his hand on the creature's head, and for a moment, the Black Ant's eyes showed something no ant should ever show. Fear. Then its struggles ceased. Its eyes went dark. And when they opened again, they glowed with the purple light of Sung Jin-woo's army. The Shadow Ant King had a new general. Aftermath. The memorial was held 3 days later. Names were read. Tears were shed. Flowers were laid at the base of a new monument that would stand on Jigu Island forever, marking the cost of victory. But the world remembered the 3 who had turned the tide. Sung Jin-woo, the Shadow Monarch. Peter Kixing, the Monarch of Geo. Lupin Shogun, the Monarch of Electro. In conference rooms across Seoul, offers poured in. Every major guild wanted them. Every government wanted to claim them. The money being offered could buy small countries. Peter looked at the contracts, then pushed them aside. I'm starting my own guild. Fenris raised an eyebrow. Oh, the Kixing clan. Peter's voice was quiet but firm. I'm not answering to anyone who might use me. Not again. Across the city, Lupin reached the same conclusion independently. The Shogun Guild. He looked at Crystal, at Eleanor, at Nephrites. We train the next generation. No prejudice against rank, race, or origin. No lies. No deception. No betrayal. Anyone with pure intentions is welcome. Crystal smiled. That's a lot of rules for a former thief. Lupin's lips twitched. Former thief. Current monarch. I'm allowed to change. Director Go Gun. He personally approved both guild applications, his weathered face showing something rare, genuine hope. When Peter came to submit his paperwork, the old man studied him with eyes that had seen too much. You remind me of someone, Go said quietly. Someone I lost, a long time ago. A young man who believed in responsibility. In doing the right thing, even when the world gave him every reason not to. Peter's hand tightened on his staff. That man, did he find peace? Go was silent for a long moment. I don't know. But I hope, wherever he is, he's found something worth fighting for. Peter met the old man's eyes, and for a moment, he saw Uncle Ben looking back at him. Not in features, but in something deeper, in the quiet wisdom of a man who had seen the worst the world had to offer and still believed in the good. Thank you, Director, Peter said, and meant it. Chapter 11, Gate Outbreak. Months later, the Shogun Guild headquarters had become something of a landmark in Seoul. Built on the outskirts of the city, the grounds were a carefully cultivated wilderness, trees that hadn't existed there before, streams that followed paths Lupin's earth-shaping had carved, training grounds that crackled with residual electricity after every session. In the center of it all, a little girl with aquamarine eyes rode an elephant. Faster, faster. Ivy laughed, her small hands gripping Eleanor's shoulders as the elephant kin jogged across the training field, her massive feet thudding against the earth. Any faster and you'll fall off, little one, Eleanor rumbled, her voice warm despite her size. I never fall. You fell off 3 times yesterday. That was yesterday. From the sidelines, a small figure darted between Eleanor's feet, squeaking with excitement. Nezumi Squeaks, the tiny mousekin who had attached herself to Ivy like a shadow, was determined to be as much a nuisance as possible. Get off my foot. Eleanor laughed, trying to avoid stepping on the tiny creature. Never. This is my territory now. Lupin watched from the porch of the guild hall, a cup of tea cooling forgotten in his hands. His electro senses were always active now, a constant awareness of the electrical currents in everything around him. It let him feel the city's pulse, the flow of power through its grids, the spark of life in every person within his range. It also let him feel the wrongness that had been building for weeks. You're tense again. Crystal sat beside him, her warmth a familiar comfort. She didn't ask what was wrong, she had learned that he would tell her when he was ready. Something's coming, Lupin said quietly. I can feel it, like a storm building on the horizon, but, not a storm. Something else. Crystal took his hand. Then we'll face it together. Like we always do. Across the city, Peter felt it too. The Kixing clan headquarters was a different beast entirely. All sleek stone architecture, geometric precision, and carefully cultivated gardens that seemed to exist in defiance of the city around them. Peter stood in the center of his training ground, the earth beneath his feet singing to him in frequencies no one else could hear. And in those frequencies, he heard discord. Deadpool appeared beside him, his mask somehow conveying concern despite the lack of facial expression. You've been standing there for like 3 hours. Fenris is getting worried. Well, more worried than usual. Which is a lot, because she's always worried. It's kind of her thing. We need to train harder, Peter said. All of us. Okay. But maybe after lunch. I'm thinking tacos. Did they have tacos in Korea? They must have tacos. Everywhere has tacos, right? Peter didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the horizon, where the sky was beginning to darken. The double gate. The call came 3 days later. Sung Jin-woo's voice was tight over the secure line. White Tiger Guild is assembling a raid. A-ranked gate, possibly higher. I need you both there. Peter was already moving. What's the catch? A pause. The mana readings are wrong. Chaotic. This isn't a normal gate. I think something else is happening. Lupin met Peter at the assembly point, their parties behind them. Eleanor, Nephrites, and Crystal flanked Lupin. Fenris, Deadpool, and Moon Knight stood with Peter. Sung Jin-woo arrived with his shadows coiling at his feet. The White Tiger Guild hunters gave them a wide berth, their eyes flickering between the 3 monarchs with a mixture of awe and fear. They were A-rank and B-rank hunters, experienced and capable, but in the presence of such concentrated power, they felt like candles next to bonfires. Well, this is an interesting bunch, Lupin observed, scanning the assembled hunters. No kidding, Peter agreed. They moved into the gate. The army of shadows. The dungeon was a wasteland of bones and ash, the sky above them a perpetual twilight. The undead rose from the earth in waves, skeletons with rusted weapons, zombies dragging their decaying bodies forward, wraiths that screamed with the voices of the damned. Lupin exhaled slowly. Army. Peter nodded. Army. They summoned. Peter's hands pressed to the earth, and the ground answered. Stone golems the size of buildings rose from the dirt, their fists swinging with tectonic force. Iron golems followed, their metallic forms gleaming in the twilight, their movements precise and mechanical. The earth itself became a weapon, spikes, walls, crevices that swallowed the undead whole. Lupin raised his hand, and the sky answered. Lightning arced down from the clouds, and from each strike, an electro-samurai emerged, dozens of them, then hundreds. Their forms were semi-translucent, their armor crackling with contained power, their blades humming with enough electricity to atomize flesh. Above them, an electro-dragon circled, its roar shaking the bones from the ground. Sung Jin-woo's shadows surged forward, meeting the undead tide with darkness of their own. The Shadow Ant King moved at the front, its claws carving through skeletons like a scythe through wheat. The White Tiger hunters watched, their mouths open, their weapons forgotten in their hands. They're not human, one of them whispered. No, another agreed. There's something else entirely. The battle was brutal but brief. The undead were endless in number, but the three monarchs were endless in power. Within an hour, the dungeon had been cleared, the boss slain, the gate stabilized. But Peter's face was grim. 2 gates, he said quietly. This one, and another. At the same time. Lupin's eyes narrowed. Where? The school. Sung Jin-woo's face had gone pale. My sister's school. Go, Lupin said immediately. Take one of my samurai. They'll move faster than anything else. Sung Jin-woo was already moving, an electro-samurai falling into step beside him, its lightning carrying them both across the city faster than any vehicle could manage. He arrived to find chaos. High orcs, massive, green-skinned creatures with tusks and crude weapons, were pouring out of a gate that had opened in the middle of the schoolyard. Students screamed and ran. Teachers tried to form defensive lines. And in the center of it all, Jin-ah stood with a makeshift weapon, her face pale but determined. Sung Jin-woo moved. The electro-samurai beside him became a whirlwind of lightning and steel, cutting down orcs with mechanical efficiency. Sung Jin-woo's shadows erupted from the ground, surrounding the gate, preventing any more from emerging. He found the orc chieftain at the center of the chaos, a massive creature, easily twice the size of the others, its tusks stained with blood. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the creature seemed to recognize what it was facing. Then Sung Jin-woo moved, and the orc chieftain died. The gate collapsed behind him, its energy dissipating into nothing. But the damage was done. Students were dead. Teachers were injured. And somewhere in the chaos, Lupin's electro-samurai had recorded something that made Sung Jin-woo's blood run cold. The 2 gates had opened at the exact same moment. Synchronized. Coordinated. This wasn't random. The gathering storm. Back at the White Tiger Guild headquarters, Peter and Lupin stood over a map of Seoul, red markers indicating the locations of the 2 gates. 2 gates, Peter said. One at the school, one in the industrial district. Both A rank. Both opening simultaneously. That's not normal, Lupin agreed. Gates open randomly, independently. This was coordinated. By what? Lupin was silent for a long moment. I've been feeling something building for months. A pressure. Like a storm that won't break. I thought it was just me adjusting to this world, but it's not. Peter looked up, his expression grim. You think this is connected? I know it is. Lupin's hand crackled with electricity, the sparks dancing between his fingers. Something is coming, Peter. Something big. And I think it's just getting started. Outside, the sky was darkening, thunder rolling across the city. A storm was coming. But it wasn't the storm that worried them. It was what the storm was bringing. Chapter 12. Chaos in Japan. The invitation had come with the highest level of diplomatic priority. Japan's Hunter Association, still recovering from the devastation of the Jigu Island raid, requested the presence of Korea's 3 newest S ranks for an international cooperation summit. The request was polite, carefully worded, and impossible to refuse without causing political incident. So they went. Departure. Eleanor Zoe stood at the airport terminal, her massive frame somehow managing to look elegant in a tailored suit that had been custom-made to accommodate her elephantine proportions. Beside her, Nephrites adjusted the quiver hidden beneath her traveling cloak. Old habits died hard. I still don't understand why we couldn't just teleport, Deadpool complained, bouncing on his heels as they waited for boarding. I mean, Lupin can literally turn into lightning. Peter can surf on rocks. Why are we doing the whole first-class passenger thing like normal people? Because normal people don't explode into lightning or ride tectonic plates through international airspace, Peter said flatly. Diplomatic visit. We're supposed to look civilized. Says the guy who can crush cars with his mind. That's exactly why I need to look civilized. A small hand tugged at Lupin's sleeve. Ivy looked up at him with her aquamarine eyes, practically vibrating with excitement. Big brother, are we really going to Japan? The real Japan, with the temples and the cherry blossoms and everything. Lupin's expression softened. He knelt down to her level, adjusting the small backpack she had insisted on carrying herself. The real Japan, though I can't promise cherry blossoms. We're going for work, not vacation. But we'll still get to see things, right? We'll get to see things, he confirmed. And maybe, if there's time, I'll show you the temple where I learned one of my sword techniques. Ivy's eyes went wide. You learned a sword technique at a temple. Let's just say the monks there were very patient with me. Beside them, Scaramouche, the water-aspected youth Lupin had taken in alongside Ivy, watched the exchange with quiet amusement. He had been with them for months now, ever since Lupin had found him in a dungeon much like the one where Ivy had been rescued. His water powers were developing nicely, and his dry wit had become a welcome addition to the household. You know she's going to hold you to that, Scaramouche said. We're going to end up touring every temple in Kyoto. Probably, Lupin admitted. Is that a problem? Not at all. I've always wanted to see the gardens. Across the terminal, Peter's party was doing their own version of preparing. Fenris stood close to Peter, her lupine senses scanning the crowd for threats, a habit she couldn't shake, no matter how peaceful the setting. Moon Knight stood in silence, his mask retracted to reveal a face that had slowly been learning to relax in the months since their arrival in this world. Deadpool was, predictably, being Deadpool. Oh man, I can't wait. He chanted, practically vibrating. Japan, land of the rising sun. Home of sushi, samurai, and Deadpool, Moon Knight interrupted, calm yourself. I can't calm myself. I'm so freaking excited. Deadpool paused, his masked face tilting as if listening to something only he could hear. Also, why do I get the feeling something bad is about to happen in Japan? Like, really bad. Like, we're going to need a bigger boat, bad. Try not to go full meta on all of us, Lupin said, shooting him a warning glance. Who, me? I would never. Oh look, the plane's here. The first-class cabin was luxurious, all soft leather and quiet efficiency. Ivy pressed her face against the window as Soul shrank beneath them, her small gasp of wonder echoing through the cabin. It looks so small from up here, she breathed. The world always looks smaller when you're above it, Peter said quietly, something distant in his voice. But it's still the same world when you land. Fenris took his hand, squeezing gently. Whatever memory had surfaced, she pulled him back from it with that simple touch. Arrival. Haneda Airport was a riot of color and sound. Word of their arrival had spread. Crowds lined the arrival corridor, held back by barriers and security personnel. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions in rapid-fire Japanese and Korean. And at the center of it all, the 3S ranks of Korea walked in formation. Sung Jin-woo took point, his shadows condensed to nothing, his expression neutral. Behind him, Peter and Lupin flanked their respective parties, presenting a united front that the media devoured. That's them. The ones who saved Jigu. Monarch of Geo. Monarch of Electro. Look this way. A small boy, no older than Ivy, slipped past the barriers with a marker and a notebook. He ran straight for Lupin, his face a mixture of terror and determination. Lupin stopped. The crowd held its breath. Are you really a monarch? The boy asked, his voice trembling. Lupin looked at the notebook, then at the boy. He knelt, bringing himself to eye level. I'm just a hunter who's good with lightning. What's your name? Kenji. Kenji. Lupin took the notebook and marker, signing with a flourish that made the boy's eyes go wide. You want to be a hunter someday? Yes. I want to be strong like you. Then train hard. Eat your vegetables. Listen to your teachers. Lupin handed the notebook back, and for a moment, something warm flickered in his usually stoic expression. And remember, strength isn't just about power. It's about knowing when to use it. Kenji clutched the notebook to his chest, beaming. The crowd's tension dissolved into applause and laughter. Crystal watched from behind Lupin, a soft smile on her face. You're getting soft, she murmured. I'm getting practical, he corrected. That kid will remember this for the rest of his life. Might as well make it a good memory. The summit was scheduled for the following morning. But as they settled into their accommodations, a traditional ryokan that had been reserved for the occasion, the air began to change. Peter felt it first. A tremor in the earth, subtle but wrong. The frequencies beneath Tokyo were shifting, resonating in ways that shouldn't be possible. Lupin felt it second. The electrical currents in the city flickered, just for a moment. A surge that came from nowhere and went to somewhere that didn't exist. They found each other in the corridor, both moving toward the exit. You feel it? Peter asked. Something's opening. Something big. The gates. The first gate ripped open over the Tokyo skyline at 3:47 p.m. local time. It wasn't like a normal gate. Normal gates formed slowly, their edges wavering as they stabilized. This one tore, a jagged wound in reality that spilled darkness into the afternoon sky. And from that darkness came giants. They were massive, easily 30 meters tall, their skin the color of weathered stone, their eyes burning with ancient malice. They stepped out of the gate like it was a doorway, their feet cratering the streets below. Screams erupted. The city, which moments before had been going about its ordinary business, dissolved into chaos. The Japanese Hunter Association reacted immediately. Emergency sirens wailed. Hunters mobilized. But they were too few, too scattered to contain what was emerging. Then the second gate opened. And the third. 3 gates. Simultaneously. In the heart of Tokyo. This isn't normal, Peter said, his voice tight as they ran toward the nearest disturbance. 3 gates don't appear randomly. Could someone have the ability to summon gates? Probably, Lupin answered, lightning already crackling around his fists. And this could be a worst-case scenario we're dealing with. They reached the first giant as it was bringing its foot down on an evacuated building. Peter's hand slammed into the ground, and the earth answered. Stone erupted upward, catching the giant's leg, locking it in place. The creature roared, its attention shifting to the tiny figures below. Evacuate! Lupin shouted, his voice carrying across the chaos. Eleanor, Nephrites, Crystal, get the civilians out. Now! Eleanor didn't need to be told twice. She moved into the crowd, her massive frame somehow reassuring rather than terrifying, her voice a calm anchor in the storm. This way. Move toward the shelter. Keep moving. Nephrites climbed to a rooftop, her bow appearing in her hands. Her arrows found the eyes of a second giant, blinding it, buying precious seconds for the evacuation below. Crystal's magic barriers snapped into place, protecting a group of schoolchildren who had been separated from their teachers. Go. Run. Don't look back. Peter's party moved in perfect synchronization. Fenris herded civilians, her lupine form terrifying but her actions gentle. Deadpool and Moon Knight established a perimeter, their weapons keeping the giants' attention away from the fleeing crowds. And in the center of it all, the 3 monarchs summoned their armies. Sung Jin Woo's shadows erupted from the ground, a tide of darkness that swarmed the first giant, climbing its legs, its arms, its torso. The Shadow Ant King led the charge, its claws finding purchase in the creature's stony hide. Lupin raised his hand to the sky, and lightning answered. The Electro Dragon formed first, its wings spanning the block, its roar shaking windows for miles. Then the samurai came, dozens, then hundreds, their blades crackling with enough power to atomize flesh. Peter pressed both hands to the ground, and the earth beneath Tokyo remembered what it was. Stone golems the size of buildings rose from the streets, their fists swinging with tectonic force. Iron golems followed, their movements mechanical and precise. And from the bedrock below, ancient mechanical golems, things that had slumbered for millennia, awakened to his call. Take them down, Peter commanded. The armies clashed. The giants were powerful, ancient things, their strength enough to shatter buildings. But they had never faced anything like this. The electro-samurai moved through them like lightning through clouds, their blades severing tendons, piercing eyes, finding every weakness. The stone golems met them head-on, fist against fist, mountain against mountain. Sung Jin Woo's shadows swarmed over them, consuming them from within. One by one, the giants fell. But more gates were forming. The sky above Tokyo was becoming a tapestry of wounds, each one disgorging horrors that should have remained in nightmares. Then something emerged that made even Lupin pause. The Kraken was not like the others. It was massive, larger than any of the giants, larger than the buildings around it. Its tentacles were the size of city streets, lined with suckers that could crush tanks. Its eyes burned with an intelligence that spoke of something far older than any dungeon. Okay, Lupin said slowly. That's new. No kidding, Peter agreed. That didn't come from a normal dungeon. Did someone create it? I don't think a hunter can produce something like that. And neither of us has that kind of power. The Kraken's tentacles lashed out, wrapping around a stone golem, crushing it to rubble. Another tentacle swept through a line of electro-samurai, dispersing them into sparks. Sung Jin Woo's shadows tried to swarm it, but the creature's skin crackled with a dark energy that repelled them. The Shadow Monarch's eyes narrowed. This one is different. We need to synchronize, Lupin said, moving to stand beside Peter. Geo and Electro. Combined. Peter understood immediately. He raised his hands, and the earth beneath the Kraken began to rise, not attacking, but containing. Stone walls erupted around the creature, boxing it in, limiting its movement. Lupin gathered power. Not just his electro abilities, but his Saiyan ki, fused together into something that had never existed before. The sky above Tokyo went dark. Clouds gathered from nowhere, swirling around the point where Lupin stood. Now, Peter shouted. The stone walls compressed, holding the Kraken in place for a single, crucial second. Lupin released. The lightning bolt that struck the Kraken was not natural. It was violet-white, visible from every corner of Tokyo, hot enough to vaporize steel. It struck the Kraken's central mass and kept going, burning through the creature's ancient hide, through its flesh, through the dark core that animated it. The Kraken screamed, a sound that would haunt Tokyo for years, and then it collapsed, dead before it hit the ground. Peter's stone hands caught it, lowering it gently rather than letting it crush the surrounding buildings. Got it. Lupin landed beside him, breathing hard, steam rising from his skin. That's the last of them. Above them, the gates were closing. The chaos was subsiding. Emergency services were already moving in, tending to the wounded, securing the area. But as Lupin looked at the sky, at the fading scars where reality had been torn open, he knew this wasn't over. This was just the beginning. Chapter 13. Don't Touch My Family. 3 weeks later. The aftermath of Tokyo had changed things. The international community was on high alert, the hunter associations of every nation scrambling to understand what had happened. 3 simultaneous gates. Creatures that shouldn't exist. Power levels that defied classification. But for Lupin and Peter, life had returned to something approaching normal. The Shogun Guild and the Kixing clan had become pillars of the Korean hunter community, their reputation for fairness and strength attracting talented hunters from across the country. Peter had thrown himself into something unexpected, industry. The Kixing Industries building rose in the heart of Seoul, its architecture a blend of traditional Korean design and impossible stonework that Peter had shaped himself. He had hired former Stark Industries employees, people who had been discarded after Tony Stark's death, their skills and knowledge deemed obsolete by a company that had never truly valued them. He treated them differently. I don't want weapons, Peter said at the first company meeting, standing before a room of engineers who had spent their careers building the tools of war. I want solutions. Clean energy. Medical technology. Infrastructure that doesn't fall apart when the next disaster hits. The lead engineer, a woman named Dr. Yuna Park who had worked on Stark's arc reactor technology, looked skeptical. You're asking us to build the future. I'm asking you to build a better present. The future will take care of itself. Unlike Stark Industries, which had been built on ego and flash, Kixing Industries was built on something else. The working conditions were humane. The pay was fair. The projects were chosen not for profit margins, but for impact. Peter was creating an AI, not the kind that would become a city-destroying threat, but something smaller, more focused. An assistant that would help manage the company's growing portfolio. A tool, not a weapon. He refused to make the same mistakes he had seen Tony Stark make. "You know," Deadpool said one day, watching Peter review engineering schematics, "Tony would have hated this." Peter didn't look up. Tony's dead. True. But also, he would have really hated this. Like, build a suit specifically to fight you, hated this. I don't care what Tony Stark would have thought. I care about the people whose lives can be better if we do this right. Deadpool was quiet for a moment, a rare occurrence. "You know, that's actually kind of inspiring. In a boring, let's not build killer robots kind of way. That's exactly the kind of way I'm aiming for. The dungeon world." Across the city, Lupin was dealing with a different kind of challenge. The gate that had appeared in the industrial district was unlike any they had seen before. Its energy signature was strange, almost playful, and when Lupin's team entered, they found themselves in a world that looked like it had been built from blocks. "It's cubes," Eleanor said, staring at the landscape. "Everything is cubes." "Everything is cubes," Lupin confirmed, equally baffled. "This is new." The gate led to a sprawling world of blocky mountains and square trees, inhabited by villagers who looked at them with a mixture of hope and terror. A nearby settlement was under attack by creatures that looked like pig men, their crude weapons and aggressive posturing marking them as the aggressors. Lupin made a decision. We helped them. The battle was brutal but straightforward. The pig men were numerous but lacked strategy. Lupin's electro-samurai carved through their ranks, Eleanor's strength scattered their formations, and Nephrite's arrows picked off their leaders from a distance. When they reached the pig men's stronghold, Lupin faced their chieftain alone. The creature was massive, its tusks gleaming, its eyes burning with rage. It charged. Lupin moved. The nether katana, a blade that had dropped from the chieftain's corpse, felt right in his hands. It was lighter than it should have been, its edge shimmering with heat, and when Lupin tested it against a stone pillar, it cut through like paper. "This is something," he murmured. Eleanor approached, wiping pig men blood from her knuckles. "You know, these dungeons are certainly different from the ones we used to see. Some of them seem to open gates to other worlds entirely." Lupin looked at the strange, blocky sky, at the villagers emerging to thank them, at the bizarre beauty of this place. Maybe that's what gates really are. Doors to places we never imagined. He gained something else from that dungeon, something more valuable than any weapon. The electro clones came to him in a moment of desperate inspiration, during a fight with a creature that had nearly overwhelmed him. He had split himself into 4 copies, each one crackling with lightning, each one moving with independent thought and purpose. The creature had been overwhelmed, and Lupin had walked away with a new ability that pushed him closer to the full power of the Electro Monarch. For the first time, he felt like he was approaching what he was meant to be. The breaking point. They returned from the dungeon to find their homes destroyed. Lupin's guild headquarters had been ransacked. Furniture smashed. Walls defaced. In the center of the main hall, a note had been pinned to the wall with a knife. "You think you're untouchable. You're nothing. Wong Dongsu." Peter's guild had suffered the same fate. Fenris was gone. Deadpool was gone. Moon Knight was gone. Their rooms showed signs of a struggle, blood on the floor, weapons discarded, evidence of a fight that had been brutally one-sided. Lupin's hands crackled with uncontrolled lightning. The walls around him began to char. He took them. He took Ivy. Peter's fists clenched, stone cracking beneath his feet. "We find them. We end this." Tracking Wong Dongsu wasn't difficult. The man was arrogant, confident in his power, sure that the Korean S-ranks wouldn't dare retaliate against a hunter with American backing. He had taken his prizes to a warehouse in the industrial district, a place he used for his less legal activities. Lupin and Peter found the warehouse at midnight. The guards at the entrance didn't even have time to scream. One was crushed under a pillar of stone that erupted from beneath his feet. The other's head left his shoulders so cleanly that it took him a moment to realize he was dead. Lupin's nether katana hummed with satisfaction. Inside, the scene made Lupin's blood freeze. Ivy lay on the cold concrete floor, blood pooling beneath her small body. She was breathing, barely, but the wounds covering her were severe. Beside her, Scaramouche was unconscious, his water powers useless when he had been beaten before he could summon them. Fenris was chained to a support beam, her lupine form battered but defiant. Deadpool was healing, slowly, his regeneration working overtime to undo the damage, but his mask had been torn away, revealing the scarred face beneath. Moon Knight was in the worst shape. He had fought the hardest, and they had punished him for it. His uniform was shredded, his body a roadmap of injuries. Well, Wang Dongsu said, stepping out of the shadows. He was grinning, a predator who didn't realize he had become prey. The S-rank superstars finally arrive. I was beginning to think you didn't care about your little friends. Lupin's voice was quiet, dangerously quiet. You touched my family. They were very touchable. Wang gestured to his men, a dozen thugs with weapons and enhancement spells. You know, it's not personal. Well, maybe a little personal. You think you can just show up, take all the attention, take all the glory. There are people who've been working in this country for years who deserve that spotlight. Peter stepped forward, stone forming around his fists. You could have challenged us. Fought us in a gate. Competed for rankings. Instead, you attacked children and prisoners. Children, prisoners. Wang laughed. They're your weaknesses. And in this business, weaknesses get exploited. Hey, buddy, Deadpool croaked from the floor, you can't save us if you just stand there looking angsty. Just saying. Wang raised a hand, ready to give the order to attack. He never got the chance. The stone beneath his feet surged upward, encasing him from the waist down. Before he could react, Lupin was in front of him, the nether katana pressed against his throat. You made a mistake, Lupin said, his voice flat. You thought we were just S-ranks. That we played by the same rules as everyone else. Wang's grin faltered. You kill me, and the Americans. I don't care about the Americans. I don't care about your connections, your money, or your reputation. The katana pressed deeper, drawing blood. You hurt my family. There is no power in this world that will save you from what happens next. Wang's eyes went wide. Wait. Lupin's blade moved. Wang Dongsu's head hit the ground a moment later. The warehouse went silent. Wang's thugs stared, their weapons forgotten, their courage evaporated. Peter looked at them, his eyes cold. Leave. Tell everyone what happened here. Tell them what happens to anyone who touches our people. They ran. Thomas Andre. They were healing their wounded, Peter's geokinetic abilities allowing him to stabilize the most severe injuries, Lupin's electro-healing restarting hearts and sealing wounds, when the warehouse doors exploded inward. Thomas Andre stood in the wreckage, his massive frame silhouetted against the night sky. Behind him, a dozen American S-ranks and A-ranks fanned out, their weapons ready. 2 Korean S-ranks, Thomas said, his voice like grinding stones. Kill a hunter under American protection. You know I can't let that stand. Lupin straightened, the nether katana still in his hand. He kidnapped children. He tortured our people. He was going to kill them. I don't care what he did. He was ours to deal with, not yours. Peter stepped up beside Lupin. Then you should have dealt with him before he came after our families. Thomas's eyes narrowed. I'm giving you one chance. Stand down. Come with me to face the International Hunter Association's judgment. Maybe. No. Lupin's voice was absolute. Thomas sighed, cracking his neck. I was hoping you'd say that. The fight that followed was brutal. Thomas was the strongest S-rank in America for a reason. His physical power was immense, his strikes capable of cratering concrete, his speed belying his size. He moved like a force of nature, and for the first time, Lupin and Peter faced an opponent who could match them. Lupin's katana met Thomas's fists in showers of sparks. Peter's stone gauntlets absorbed blows that would have killed normal men. They moved in perfect synchronization, their powers complementing each other, their experience from 100 battles guiding their movements. But Thomas was not alone. His hunters engaged Lupin's and Peter's armies, the warehouse becoming a battlefield that threatened to spill into the surrounding city. Peter made a decision. Army, contain them. Don't kill unless you have to. His golems moved to surround the American hunters, creating a perimeter that kept the fight contained. Lupin's electro-samurai did the same, their blades forming a barrier that prevented escape. And in the center of it all, 3 S-ranks clashed. Thomas's fist connected with Peter's chest, sending him through a wall. Before he could follow up, Lupin was there, his blade tracing arcs of lightning across Thomas's defenses. The American hunter blocked, caught, countered, but Lupin was faster, his Saiyan instincts reading every move before it formed. Peter emerged from the rubble, stone armor forming around him, a redstone-enhanced gauntlet crackling with contained energy. He caught Thomas's next punch and held, the stone absorbing the impact. Now, Peter said. Lupin moved. His blade found the gap in Thomas's defense, a spot just below the ribs, where even the strongest hunter had a weakness. The strike was precise, controlled, delivered with exactly enough force to incapacitate without killing. Thomas's eyes went wide. He dropped to one knee, his hand pressed against the wound. You could have killed me. Could have, Lupin agreed. Didn't. There's a difference between us and the people we left behind in that warehouse. Thomas looked at the bodies of Wong's thugs, at the healing wounded, at the two men standing over him with power that dwarfed anything he had ever faced. What are you? Survivors, Peter said, who found something worth protecting. Chapter 14, The Guild Meeting. 1 week later, the press conference was held in Seoul's largest convention center, the same venue where the Jigu Island raid had been announced. But this time, the atmosphere was different. This time, the world was watching for answers. Lupin stood at the podium, Peter beside him, their parties arrayed behind them as a show of unity. The media had been clamoring for days, questions about Wang Dongsu's death, about Thomas Andre's hospitalization, about the growing power of Korea's newest S-ranks. We're here to explain what happened, Lupin began, his voice steady. And why? He laid it out simply. The attack on their homes. The kidnapping of his sister. The torture of their people. The warehouse, the confrontation, the death of Wang Dongsu. When someone comes for my family, Lupin said, I don't negotiate. I don't make threats. I end the threat, permanently. The room was silent. Even the most aggressive reporters had stopped typing. Peter stepped forward. We understand that our actions have consequences. We're prepared to face whatever judgment the Hunter Association deems appropriate. But we want to make something clear. He looked directly at the camera, at the world watching. We will never apologize for protecting our people. We will never regret removing someone who thought they could hurt children with impunity. And we will never, ever stand by while the powerful abuse the weak. The silence stretched. Then, slowly, the press corps began to react, not with outrage, but with understanding. The footage of Ivy's injuries, of Fenris's chains, of the devastation in their homes, had already been released. The world had seen what Wang Dongsu had done. There was no scandal. There was no international incident. There was, instead, a quiet acknowledgement that some lines, once crossed, could not be uncrossed. The gathering. The next day, the real meeting began. It was held in the Hunter Association's secure conference room, a space designed to withstand attacks that could level cities. Representatives from every major guild sat around the table, Korean, Japanese, Chinese, American. And at the head of the table, Director Go Gun-hee prepared to reveal something that would change everything. Lupin entered with Eleanor, Crystal, and Nephrites behind him. Peter came with Fenris, Deadpool, and Moon Knight. Sung Jin-woo arrived alone, his shadows coiled tight around him. The cameras flashed. The murmurs spread. 3 S-ranks, walking together. Lupin gave a lazy peace sign as he entered, his expression a mix of boredom and amusement. The tension in the room was palpable, but he refused to let it dictate his mood. Director Go called the meeting to order. The number of gates appearing worldwide has been surging, he began, his voice grave. More powerful magic beasts are arriving. But there's something else. He pressed a button, and a holographic display lit up above the table. It showed a map of the world, overlaid with readings of magical energy. Most of it was green, stable, normal. But 9 points on the map glowed red, pulsing like heartbeats. These are regions of intense magical activity, Go continued. We're calling them magic spheres. The energy density in these areas is increasing exponentially, and we don't know why. Peter leaned forward, studying the map. The 9 points were scattered across the globe, Europe, Africa, the Americas, Asia. But 1 point stood out, pulsing brighter than all the others. South Korea. The magic sphere above us is the largest, Go said, and the room's attention shifted to Peter, to Lupin, to Sung Jin-woo. Some have suggested that the presence of 3 exceptional S-ranks in one country might be contributing to the phenomenon. The murmurs grew. Accusatory glances. Quiet theories. Lupin's expression didn't change, but inside, his mind was racing. 9 points. 9 monarchs. It couldn't be a coincidence. If we are contributing, Lupin said carefully, it's not intentional. And it's not something we can simply stop. Dr. Belser, the lead researcher on the project, cleared his throat. We don't know what's causing the magic spheres. We don't know what they'll become. But the energy readings suggest something is coming. Something that could change the world. The room went quiet. The revelation. The presentation was ending when Lu Zigang, the S-rank from China, rose from his seat. He was a quiet man, known more for his power than his words. But when he spoke, people listened. Peter Kixing, Lu said, his eyes fixed on Peter. Or do I prefer, Peter Parker, the amazing Spider-Man? The room froze. Peter didn't move, didn't react. But beside him, Lupin stepped forward, positioning himself between Peter and Lu's gaze. I have no idea what you're talking about, Lupin said. The name Spider-Man died a long time ago. During the Civil War. Lu smiled. I know. Ever since 2 individuals died at the raft, the world went into chaos. The so-called heroes did nothing. He looked at Peter with something that might have been respect. It is a shame that Stark's ego got the better of him. A disappointment of a man. A hero who looked down on the weak. Nothing more than a warmonger. Wouldn't you agree? Peter's jaw tightened. Yes. He was arrogant. Indeed. Lu's smile widened. But you were different. You were the one who kept trying, even when the world gave you every reason to stop. I admired that. Before I became a hunter, I admired Spider-Man. The room was silent, waiting. But right now, Lu continued, I have to head back home. Paperwork, you understand. He inclined his head toward Peter and Lupin. The Kixing clan. The Shogun Guild. You've built something worth protecting. I hope you succeed. He turned and walked out, leaving a room full of confused hunters and 2 former heroes who had just had their pasts laid bare. Peter and Lupin exchanged a glance. There was no panic in their eyes. No fear. Only resolve. The meeting is adjourned, Director Go said, his voice cutting through the tension. We'll reconvene when there's more information about the magic spheres. As the room emptied, Peter and Lupin lingered. They knew what the 9 points on the map meant. They knew what was coming. The other monarchs were waking up. And soon, the war that would decide the fate of this world would begin. We need to prepare, Peter said quietly. Lupin nodded. Train harder. Get stronger. And when they come, his hand crackled with electricity. We show them what happens when you threaten what we've built. Sung Jin-woo approached, his expression unreadable. You 2 know more than you're saying. We know what those 9 points are, Lupin admitted. They're monarchs. Beings of immense power. And they're coming here. Sung Jin-woo's shadows stirred. Then we fight. Then we win, Peter corrected. No more running. No more compromising. We protect what matters, or we die trying. The 3 monarchs stood in the empty conference room, Geo, Electro, Shadow, and for a moment, the weight of what was coming pressed down on them. Then Lupin smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a warrior who had found something worth fighting for. This is just the beginning, he said. Peter nodded. Then let's make sure we're ready for the end. Outside, the magic sphere above Seoul pulsed, a heartbeat of power that signaled the coming storm. And in the conference room, 3 men who had been given second chances prepared to defend their new world with everything they had. Chapter 15. Preparations and spending time. The war was coming. Everyone could feel it, the weight of it pressing down on the world like a storm waiting to break. The 9 magic spheres pulsed in the sky, their glow visible even during the day, and with each passing week, the gates grew more frequent, the monsters more powerful. But even warriors needed rest. The Shogun's gift. Lupin Shogun had spent weeks planning. The private theme park sat on the outskirts of Seoul, hidden from public view by a combination of electro-manipulated weather patterns and Peter's geokinetic barriers. It was small by commercial standards, a handful of rides, a Ferris wheel that sparkled with controlled lightning, a roller coaster that looped through artificial thunderclouds, but it was theirs. You built this for us. Crystal Novati stood at the entrance, her hand pressed to her chest, her eyes wide. I built this for us, Lupin confirmed, his usual stoic expression softening. We've been fighting for months. Training. Preparing. I thought, we deserved a day. Eleanor Zoe, the elephant kin, let out a rumble of laughter that shook the ground slightly. A theme park. The Electro Monarch built a theme park. The Electro Monarch has priorities, Lupin said dryly. And right now, his priority is making sure the people he loves have something to smile about before the world tries to end. Nephrites, the elf, stepped past him, her sharp eyes cataloging every detail. There are arcades, a movie theater, food stalls with AI chefs. They don't burn the food, Lupin said. I tested them. You tested them. Extensively. Crystal complained about my cooking last month. I took it personally. Crystal laughed, the sound bright and warm. I said your cooking was adventurous. You said my cooking was a culinary hate crime. I remember exactly what you said. Eleanor scooped Lupin up in a bear hug that cracked his spine. You ridiculous, wonderful man. Eleanor, ribs. She set him down, grinning. Sorry. Got excited. The day unfolded like something from a dream. They rode the Ferris wheel as the sun set, the lightning kissed clouds above them painting the sky in shades of violet and gold. They played arcade games. Lupin's Saiyan reflexes made him nearly unbeatable, until Crystal challenged him to a dance game and wiped the floor with him. Your pride, Eleanor observed as Lupin stared at his defeat screen in disbelief. I think it's wounded. My pride is fine. That machine is rigged. It's not rigged. You just can't dance. I can absolutely dance. I'm a monarch. Monarchs can do everything. Crystal slid up beside him, her grin mischievous. Prove it. Dance with me. The movie theater played old classics, films from before the gates, before the chaos. They sat in the dark, Eleanor's massive frame taking up 3 seats, Nephrites pretending she wasn't getting emotional during the romantic comedy, Crystal's hand warm in Lupin's. After the movie, they walked through the park as the artificial stars Lupin had programmed began to appear overhead. The air was cool, the silence comfortable. You're worried, Crystal said quietly. I can tell. Lupin didn't deny it. The other monarchs are waking up. We've faced some of them, the beastly fangs, the plague, the beginning. But there are more, stronger ones. And when they come, you'll fight, you'll win. You sound so sure. Crystal stopped, turning to face him. In the starlight, she was beautiful, more beautiful than any memory he carried from his old life. Because I know you. Because I've seen what you can do. Because you're not just fighting for yourself anymore. She reached up, touching his face. You're fighting for us. For Ivy. For Scaramouche. For the life you built here. And Lupin Shogun. You don't lose when you're fighting for something worth keeping. He kissed her then, there under the artificial stars, with Eleanor pretending not to watch and Nephrites pretending not to smile. The world was ending, maybe. The monarchs were coming. But right now, in this moment, Lupin Shogun was exactly where he needed to be. The Spider's Peace. Across the city, Peter Kixing was having a different kind of day. Universal Studios Korea had been his idea, Fenris had never been to a theme park, and Peter found himself wanting to give her experiences she had missed growing up in the dungeons. It was supposed to be simple. Normal. A day away from the weight of being a monarch. Then they found the Spider-Man ride. Peter stopped in front of the attraction, his expression unreadable. The facade was a recreation of a New York street, complete with a Daily Bugle stand featuring J. Jonah Jameson's face screaming about the web-headed menace. Mannequins in Spider-Man costumes posed on fake buildings. A gift shop sold plushies, the classic red and blue suit, the black symbiote suit, even a version with the iron spider legs. Fenris watched him carefully. Peter. He stared at the black suit plushie. For a moment, he was back there, the black suit clinging to him like oil, making him stronger, faster, meaner. The memories of what he had almost become, what he had almost done. I'm fine, he said, and was surprised to find he meant it. It's just strange. Seeing this. Here. When I was. When you were someone else, Fenris finished softly. Peter nodded slowly. Peter Parker died. In the raft, in the ocean, maybe earlier than that. Maybe he died when MJ. He stopped, took a breath. The point is, I'm not him anymore. I'm Peter Kixing. And I don't need to be reminded of who I used to be. Fenris took his hand. Then let's not go on the ride. Let's find something else. No. Peter looked at the attraction, then back at her. I want to see it. I want to see what they think Spider-Man was. And then I want to leave it behind. The ride was not accurate. It portrayed Spider-Man as a quippy hero who always won, always saved the day, always went home to a loving family at the end. It was a sanitized version, a theme park version, a version that had never existed. Peter watched the animatronic Spider-Man defeat the animatronic Green Goblin, save the animatronic Mary Jane, and swing away into the animatronic sunset. And he let it go. That wasn't him, he said quietly as they exited. That wasn't me. It was never that simple. But you tried, Fenris said. You tried to be that hero. And the world didn't deserve you. The old world didn't. This one. He looked at her, at the way the sunlight caught her hair, at the quiet strength in her eyes. This one's different. They spent the rest of the day like normal people. They rode the roller coasters. They ate overpriced food. They laughed at Deadpool, who had somehow gotten onto the roof of the park's tallest building and was giving them a thumbs up from 100 meters up. He's watching us, Fenris observed. He's always watching us. It's what he does. Should we be concerned? With Wade. Always. But he means well. In his own Wade way. As the sun set, Peter found himself standing in front of the Spider-Man gift shop again. The plushies were still there. The masks. The cheap web shooters. He bought one of the plushies, the classic suit. Not for himself. For Ivy. A gift from one former hero to a future one. Fenris smiled when she saw it. You're soft. I'm practical. Kids like plushies. You're soft. Quote. Maybe a little. Later, as they walked through the departing crowds, Peter felt the earth shift beneath him. Not an attack, not a threat, but a presence. Something old. Something powerful. He stopped, his hand tightening on Fenris's. What is it? She asked. Peter's eyes scanned the crowd, his geokinetic senses reaching deep into the earth. They're coming. Soon. Chapter 16. Battle of Monarchs. The attack came 3 days later. Seoul was the epicenter, the largest magic sphere hung directly above the city, pulsing like a heartbeat, and when it finally broke, it broke over the capital of South Korea. The monarch of beastly fangs emerged first, his form shifting between man and wolf, his eyes burning with feral intelligence. Behind him came the monarch of plagues, her presence rotting the ground where she walked, and the monarch of frost, whose breath turned the summer air to winter. 3 of them, Director Go Gun, he said, his voice tight over the comm. 3 monarchs. We need to evacuate the city, Sung Jinwoo interrupted. Get everyone out. Now. The Korean S ranks moved. Cha Hae-in, Baek Yoon-ho, Choi Jong-in, they formed a defensive line, buying time for the evacuation. But the monarchs were beyond anything they had faced before. The monarch of beastly fangs tore through Thomas Andre like the American S rank was made of paper. The strongest hunter in the United States fell in seconds, his body broken, his blood steaming in the cold air the frost monarch was generating. How pathetic, the monarch of plagues said, her voice a rasping whisper. These insects should know their place. They will come, the monarch of frost said, his breath crystallizing the air. I can sense them. The traitors. The monarch of beastly fangs transformed fully, a wolf of impossible size, fur the color of blood, fangs longer than swords. Let them come. I will tear out their spines and wear them as trophies. Lightning answered first. It struck from a clear sky, a bolt of violet-white fury that slammed into the beastly fangs monarch, sending him skidding across the ruined street. Before he could recover, a pillar of stone erupted beneath him, launching him into the air. Sung Jinwoo emerged from the shadows, his army spreading out behind him. The Shadow Ant King, Beru, took point, his eyes locked on the Frost Monarch. The shadows of fallen hunters rose from the ground, their forms solidifying into an army that stretched for blocks. Lupin Shogun landed in a crackle of lightning, his electro-samurai materializing around him. The electro-dragon formed above, its roar shaking windows across the city. And behind him, Peter Kixing rose on a platform of stone, his golems emerging from the earth, obsidian constructs, redstone-powered war machines, tempest golems crackling with captured lightning, furnace golems whose bodies glowed with contained heat. 3 against 3, Lupin said, surveying the battlefield. Seems fair. The beastly fangs monarch laughed, a guttural sound. Fair? You think we play fair, traitor? We don't play at all, Peter said. We win. The clash. The battle that followed would be remembered for generations. Sung Jin-woo faced the Frost Monarch, his shadows clashing with ice constructs that could freeze the soul. Beru moved like a black blur, his claws finding gaps in the Frost Monarch's defenses, while Sung Jin-woo's daggers sought the creature's heart. The Monarch of Plagues raised her hands, and the dead rose. Hunters who had fallen in the initial attack opened their eyes, their bodies moving with her will, their weapons turning on their former allies. Peter's face twisted with disgust. "You would defile the dead. The dead are tools," the Plague Monarch said. "Nothing more." Peter's response was the earth itself. Stone spikes erupted beneath the risen corpses, impaling them, pinning them to the ground. Furnace golems moved forward, their heat burning away the plague magic, releasing the souls to finally rest. "I will make you pay for that," the Plague Monarch hissed. "You can try." She summoned her own army, creatures of rot and disease, things that had never been alive, should never have been alive. They shambled forward, their forms dripping with corruption. Peter's golems met them head-on. Obsidian fists crushed rotting flesh. Tempest golems blasted them with winds that stripped away their forms. And through it all, Peter moved like a force of nature, his staff spinning, stone following his will, the earth itself rising to his command. Lupin faced the beastly Fang's Monarch alone. The creature was fast, faster than anything Lupin had faced, his claws leaving trails of light in the air. But Lupin was faster. His Saiyan instinct screamed warnings, his body moving before his mind could process the threat, his electro-enhanced reflexes making him a blur of violet lightning. Impressive, the beastly Fang's Monarch snarled, his claws raking across Lupin's chest. "For a traitor." Lupin ignored the pain, his katana finding the creature's side. "I'm not a traitor. I never served you. I never served anyone. You carry the power of a monarch. You are one of us. I carry the power of a monarch. I am nothing like you." Their blades met, claw against katana, and the shockwave shattered windows for blocks. The turning point. The battle raged for hours. The city of Seoul was devastated, blocks of it reduced to rubble. But the evacuation had worked. The civilians were safe. And slowly, inexorably, the three monarchs were being pushed back. Sung Jin-woo found the opening first. The Frost Monarch, overextended, left a gap in his defenses. Beru was through it in an instant, his claws finding the creature's throat. The Frost Monarch staggered, and Sung Jin-woo's blade found his heart. "One," Sung Jin-woo said. The Monarch of Plagues screamed, a sound that curdled blood, that cracked stone, that made the very air rot. She unleashed everything she had, a wave of disease and decay that would have killed a city. Peter's furnace golems stepped forward, their bodies absorbing the corruption, burning it away. And through the smoke, Peter moved. His staff found her chest, and the earth followed, a spike of stone erupting through her from below. "Two," Peter said. The beastly Fang's Monarch saw his allies fall and went berserk. His form shifted, grew, became something ancient and terrible, a wolf the size of a building, his fur bristling with power, his eyes burning with the rage of a god. Lupin stood before him, alone, his katana raised. "You cannot stop me," the creature roared. "I am the hunt. I am the Fang. I am." "You're nothing," Lupin said. He moved. Not fast. Not quick. He moved instantly, one moment standing before the beast, the next behind it, his katana trailing a line of lightning that had seared through the creature's neck. The beastly Fang's Monarch's head separated from its body. For a moment, its eyes showed disbelief. Then it began to disintegrate, its form crumbling into light. Lupin sheathed his katana. 3. Chapter 17. Final Battle and Choice. Months later. The victory in Seoul had bought them time, but everyone knew the war wasn't over. 3 monarchs had fallen, but 3 remained, the Monarch of Transfiguration, the Monarch of Iron Body, and the Monarch of Destruction. The strongest of their kind. The training that followed was brutal. Lupin pushed himself harder than he ever had before. His Saiyan biology responded to the challenge, his power growing with every near-death experience, every bone-breaking fall. He built a gravity chamber, 500 times Earth's gravity, and trained in it until his muscles screamed, until his bones cracked, until his Saiyan blood sang with the joy of battle. "I think you're insane," Crystal said one day, watching him emerge from the chamber, steam rising from his skin. "Probably," Lupin agreed. "But I'm also getting stronger." Peter's training was different. He went into the earth itself, descending into the mantle, letting the planet's heat forge him anew. He learned to withstand temperatures that would vaporize steel, to move through molten rock like it was water, to become one with the very core of the world. Fenris waited for him at the surface, her anxiety barely concealed. "You're going to kill yourself." "Not today," Peter said, emerging from a fissure in the ground, his skin glowing faintly with residual heat. "Today, I get stronger." America. The final battle didn't start in Korea. It started in America. Dragons poured from a gate above New York City, their wings blotted out the sun, their fire turning blocks to ash. The American hunter response was overwhelmed within hours. Military forces, National Guard, even the remnants of the Avengers, all of them fell before the dragon tide. Then the three monarchs arrived. Sung Jin-woo's shadows emerged first, a tide of darkness that met the dragons in the skies above Manhattan. His shadow army had grown in the months since Seoul, Beru, Igris, Tusk, and thousands more, their forms solidifying into a wall of death that the dragons could not breach. Lupin's electro-samurai followed, their blades crackling with power, cutting through dragon hide like paper. The electro-dragon soared above, its form dwarfing even the largest of the enemy, its roar a challenge that shook the heavens. Peter's golems marched through the streets, protecting civilians, clearing paths for evacuation. Obsidian constructs smashed through fallen buildings. Furnace golems burned away the dragon fire. Tempest golems created corridors of clear air through the smoke. And in the chaos, the three remaining monarchs revealed themselves. The monarch of transfiguration emerged from the ruins of the Statue of Liberty, his form shifting, changing, becoming a nightmare of flesh and metal. The monarch of iron body rose from the harbor, his skin gleaming, his fists raised. And the monarch of destruction descended from the sky, his presence alone cracking the ground beneath him. "So," Lupin said, standing beside Peter, the three monarchs facing the three traitors. "I guess you two are the only ones left. The Shadow Monarch will face destruction alone," the monarch of destruction said, his voice a rumble that shook the city. "It is fitting. A traitor and his former master." Sung Jin-woo stepped forward, his shadows pooling around him. "I'm not your traitor. I'm not your anything. I'm the one who's going to end you." Bold words. Let's see if you can back them up. The monarch of destruction moved, and Sung Jin-woo met him, their clash creating a shockwave that flattened buildings for blocks. "That leaves us with you two," Lupin said, looking at the Transfiguration and Iron Body monarchs. "It would seem so," the Transfiguration monarch said. "Shall we?" The final clash. Lupin faced the monarch of Transfiguration while Peter fought the monarch of Iron Body. The battle was primal, elemental, a clash of powers that had existed before humanity crawled out of the mud. The Transfiguration monarch tried to adapt, tried to become what Lupin couldn't defeat. He grew blades, armor, wings. He shifted his form 100 times in 100 seconds, trying to find a weakness. Lupin gave him none. He moved like lightning itself, his katana finding the creature's forms before they could fully form. He was faster, stronger, better than he had ever been. The months of training, the gravity chamber, the Saiyan instincts honed to a razor's edge, all of it came together in this moment. "You cannot defeat me," the Transfiguration monarch snarled, his form rippling, changing, becoming something new. "I am infinite. I am." "You're nothing," Lupin said, and moved. His blade traced a line of lightning through the creature's chest. The Transfiguration monarch looked down, confused, as his forms began to collapse, one after another, unable to hold. "How?" "Because I'm not just a monarch," Lupin said. "I'm a Saiyan. And Saiyans, we don't stop growing." The Transfiguration monarch disintegrated. Across the ruined city, Peter was finishing his own battle. The Iron Body monarch was strong, his skin harder than any metal, his fists capable of leveling mountains. But Peter had trained in the heart of the planet. He had become something more than strong. "Iron is strong," Peter said, his fists meeting the monarchs in a clash that cracked the ground. "But stone is patient. Stone is eternal. Stone endures." The earth rose around them, encasing the Iron Body monarch, squeezing, crushing. The monarch struggled, his strength immense, but the earth was stronger. It always was. "You cannot hold me," the Iron Body monarch roared. "I am trapped," Peter said, and closed his fist. The earth compressed. The Iron Body monarch's armor cracked, then shattered, and he was gone. The end of destruction. Sung Jin-woo's battle with the Monarch of Destruction was the longest, the hardest, the most brutal. The Monarch of Destruction was the strongest of them, a being of pure annihilation, his power enough to end worlds. But Sung Jin-woo had something the Monarch didn't, an army of shadows that would never stop fighting, never stop coming, never stop dying and rising again. Beru fell a dozen times, rose a dozen times, each time faster, stronger, more determined. Igris's blade found the Monarch's flesh again and again. And through it all, Sung Jin-woo waited, patient, watching, waiting for the moment. It came when the Monarch overextended, his fist plunging into Sung Jin-woo's chest, or trying to. Sung Jin-woo's shadows absorbed the blow, dispersed it, turned it back on the Monarch. Impossible, the Monarch of Destruction breathed. You're right, Sung Jin-woo said, his blade finding the Monarch's heart. You should have stayed in your realm. The Monarch of Destruction screamed, his form beginning to unravel, his power dispersing into the sky. But before he could fully die, the sky opened, and the rulers descended. The choice. The rulers were beings of light, their forms almost too bright to look at. They had fought the Monarchs for eons, had sacrificed countless worlds to keep them contained. And now they stood before the three who had done what they could not. You have won, the leader of the rulers said, his voice a harmony of 1,000 voices. The Monarchs are no more. Then why are you here? Lupin asked, his hand still on his katana. The ruler was silent for a moment. We have watched you. The three who were given second chances. Who built new lives. Who protected this world not out of duty, but out of love. He raised his hand, and a cup appeared, a simple vessel, glowing with power. The cup of reincarnation, the ruler said. With it, you can remake the world. Turn back time. Erase the gates, the monsters, the death. Create a world without hunters, without monarchs, without the pain of the last decade. Sung Jin-woo stepped forward. What's the catch? No catch. Only choice. One wish. One world. Use it wisely. The new world. Sung Jin-woo was the first to speak. I want the world to return to how it was. No gates. No monsters. No hunters. Just normal lives. For everyone. The cup glowed, accepting his wish. Peter stepped forward next. He had been thinking about this for months, about what he would do if given the chance to remake a world. I want Earth 616 to be remade, he said. No heroes. No Avengers, no X-Men, no Fantastic Four. No S.H.I.E.L.D., no organizations, no secret wars. Just a normal world. A world where people live and die without the weight of gods and monsters pressing down on them. He paused, looking at Fenris, at Deadpool, at Moon Knight. But I want my friends to come with me. Wade, Mark, and I want them to have their powers. And I want to be Peter Kixing, son of Zhongli and Ningguang, heir to the Kixing clan. I want to build something better than what Stark built. Something that helps people instead of using them. The cup glowed brighter. Lupin stepped forward last. He thought about his mother, Raiden Shogun, who he had never known in this life but whose blood ran in his veins. He thought about Scaramouche, about Ivy, about the family he had built. I want my mother to be real, he said. Raiden Shogun. And my father, the origin. I want them to be part of this new world. And I want Scaramouche and Ivy to be my siblings. Really, truly, my siblings. He looked at Eleanor, at Nephrites, at Crystal. I want the people I love to remember. To know who they are, who I am. And I want to build the Shogun Guild, a place where anyone, any race, any rank, can come to train, to grow, to become something more. He turned to the ruler. I want a world where Saiyans and humans and elves and beasts can live together. Where power isn't used to oppress, but to protect. Where the mistakes of the past are just that, the past. The cup blazed with light. It is done, the ruler said. Epilogue. Earth 616 revamp. The light faded, and the world was new. Earth 616 was gone. In its place was Earth 616 revamp. A world without the weight of heroes and villains, without the endless wars, without the corruption that had rotted it to the core. It was a world where magic existed alongside science, where different races walked the same streets, where the future was unwritten and full of possibility. And in that world, two families woke to a new day. The Kixing Estate. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the Kixing Estate, a sprawling compound of traditional Korean architecture blended with impossible stonework that seemed to grow from the earth itself. In the main house, the smell of breakfast filled the air. Peter. Ningguang Kixing's voice carried through the halls. Breakfast is ready. Don't make me call you again. Peter Kixing emerged from his room, still buttoning his shirt, his hair a mess. At 22, he looked like the man he had always wanted to be, confident, at peace, his eyes holding none of the weight they had carried in another life. I'm coming, I'm coming. His mother, Ningguang, a woman of sharp intelligence and sharper wit, who had built the Kixing clan from nothing, fixed him with a look. You have the press conference today. You need to be presentable. I'm always presentable. You have food on your shirt. Peter looked down. That's from yesterday. Exactly my point. At the table, his father, Zhang Li, a man of quiet dignity and immense power, whose knowledge of the earth was matched only by his patience, poured tea with deliberate grace. The Kixing Industries presentation. You've been preparing for weeks. I'm ready, Peter said, sitting down. I'm not nervous. You're always nervous before these things. That's different. I want to get it right. Zhang Li smiled, a rare expression that transformed his usually stoic features. You will. You always do. The breakfast was quiet, comfortable. Family. Peter had never known this in his old life, had never known parents who loved him without conditions, who supported him without using him. It was a gift he would never take for granted. After breakfast, he walked through the estate's gardens, the earth beneath his feet humming with familiar energy. At the gates, he found Fenris waiting, her lupine ears twitching, her smile bright. Ready to change the world? She asked. I'm ready to try. The Shogun Estate. Across the city, the Shogun Estate was chaos. Ivy, put your shoes on. Scaramouche, stop using your water powers at the breakfast table. Eleanor, for the last time, you do not need to arm wrestle the mailman. Lupin Shogun stood in the middle of the chaos, trying to maintain some semblance of order. It was, as always, a losing battle. Ivy, his little sister, officially, legally, truly his sister, zoomed past him, her sneakers in her hand, her laugh echoing through the halls. Can't catch me. I don't need to catch you. I need you to put your shoes on before school. Scaramouche, his brother, sat at the table with the serene expression of someone who knew exactly how much chaos he was causing. A small orb of water floated above his hand, spinning slowly. Scaramouche. I'm practicing. At the breakfast table. The best time to practice. Eleanor Zoe, the elephant kin, was indeed arm wrestling the mailman at the front gate. The mailman, to his credit, seemed to be enjoying it. He's winning, Crystal observed, appearing at Lupin's side. He's not winning. Eleanor's letting him win. Kindness. Or boredom. Hard to tell with her. Nephrites emerged from her room, her bow slung across her back, her expression as sharp as her arrows. The school called. They want to know if you're speaking at career day. Lupin blinked. Why would I speak at career day? Because you're a famous hunter who runs one of the largest guilds in the world, and Ivy's been telling everyone her brother is the strongest man alive. She said that. Also that you can turn into lightning and once fought a giant wolf. I did fight a giant wolf. I know. But the other parents are starting to get competitive. One of them brought a dragon to last year's career day. Lupin rubbed his temples. I'll talk to the school. After I find Ivy's other shoe. Crystal kissed his cheek. You're a good brother. I'm a tired brother. There's a difference. But he was smiling as he said it. The press conference. The Kixing Industries building dominated the Seoul skyline, a tower of stone and glass that seemed to grow organically from the earth, its design both futuristic and timeless. In the main hall, reporters from around the world had gathered, their cameras ready, their questions prepared. Peter stood behind the podium, looking out at the sea of faces. In another life, he would have been nervous, would have stammered, would have hidden behind a mask. But that was another life. Here at Kixing Industries, he began, his voice steady, we believe in building the future. Not the future of weapons, not the future of war, but the future of people. Behind him, the screen lit up with images, clean energy plants, medical facilities, housing projects, environmental restoration. I'm not interested in building the next weapon of mass destruction. I'm not interested in profiting off fear or conflict. What I'm interested in is building a world where everyone, human, elf, beastkin, Saiyan, has a chance to live, to grow, to become something more than they were born into. He clicked to the next slide, a child receiving medical treatment, an elderly woman being helped across the street, a homeless man being given a job. Clean energy to replace the polluting technologies of the past. Medical breakthroughs to cure diseases that have plagued humanity for centuries. Construction technology to rebuild what was lost. Non-lethal equipment for law enforcement, for firefighters, for the people who risk their lives to save others. He paused, letting the images sink in. This is what Kixing Industries is. This is what I want to build. A symbol of evolution. A symbol of hope. Not for one race, not for one nation, but for everyone who calls this world home. The applause began slowly, then grew, filling the hall. Peter stepped back from the podium, his heart pounding, his face calm. In the front row, Ningguang Kixing watched her son with pride. Zheng Li sat beside her, his expression unreadable, but his hand gripping hers tightly. Fenris stood at the back of the hall, her eyes wet, her smile bright. And somewhere in the crowd, a man named Lu Zigang, the hunter from China who had once admired a hero named Spider-Man, nodded slowly, recognizing what he saw. Not the mask, not the costume, not the hero, just a man who had been given a second chance and was using it to make the world better. After the conference, Peter found Lupin on the roof of the Kixing building, looking out at the city. The sun was setting, painting Seoul in shades of gold and red. "You came," Peter said. "Came to see your big speech. Very impressive. Very, building the future. Very not Stark." Peter laughed. "That's the goal." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, two men who had died in another world, been reborn in another, and found something worth living for. "You think it'll last?" Lupin asked. "This peace, this new world?" Peter thought about it. The monarchs were gone. The gates were closed. The old world of heroes and villains, of endless war and endless suffering, had been remade into something new. "It'll last," he said. "Because we'll make it last. Because we're not the same people who failed before. Because we have something to protect now." Lupin nodded slowly. "Family. Family. Friends. A world that doesn't hate us for trying to save it." Below them, the city moved on, people going home from work, children playing in parks, couples walking hand in hand. Normal lives. Ordinary lives. Lives that didn't depend on a hero in a mask to save them. EARTH 616 revamp, Lupin said, tasting the words. "Has a nice ring to it." "It's not perfect," Peter admitted. "There will still be problems. Crime. Suffering. People who try to take advantage of others. That's always going to be part of being human. But now, when those problems come..." Lupin's hand crackled with electricity, just for a moment. "We'll be here, not as heroes, not as symbols, just as people who can help." Peter smiled. "That sounds about right." The sun finished setting, the stars coming out one by one. In the distance, they could hear Ivy's laugh, Scaramouche's dry wit, Eleanor's rumbling voice, Crystal's gentle teasing. Fenris was waiting for Peter, her hand warm in his, her eyes bright with the promise of a future they would build together. "It's a good life," Lupin said finally. Peter nodded. "The best." They stood there, two monarchs who had once been something else, watching the city lights flicker on below them. The past was behind them, the future ahead, and for the first time in either of their lives, they were exactly where they were supposed to be. In the distance, a little girl's voice carried on the wind, "Big brother." "Dinner." Lupin laughed, pushing off from the railing. "Duty calls." "Go," Peter said. "Your sister's waiting." Lupin paused at the door, looking back. "Peter, whatever comes next, whatever this new world throws at us, we face it together," Peter finished. "Monarchs of Electro and Geo. Or just two guys who got a second chance. That works too." And as Lupin disappeared into the building, as Peter turned back to watch the stars, a single thought crossed both their minds, at the same moment, in perfect harmony. This is what we were fighting for. This is what we were saving. And it was worth it. Every battle, every scar, every moment of doubt, it was worth it for this. Below them, Earth 616 revamped, breathed, lived, hoped. A new world. A better world. A world that would never know the name Peter Parker or Arsène Lupin III, but would know the names Kixing and Shogun, names that meant hope, meant progress, meant a future worth building. It was a new day. A new life. A new beginning. And it was only the start. The end. And this is the end of the movie of this amazing What If.